I have a little bit of a reputation with the bass players of, it's like a teenage game. Like, well, I'm not going to say it. Ben will say it. Like,
Oh,
if you're in a bar, drinking or something, and somebody says something funny, but they're only saying it to their friends. They won't say it to the bar at large or
yeah.
some other people. Well, I would always be the one that they would put me up to, like, I'll go
Go
say
ahead,
it or
say it.
something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's in the bass community, usually the stereotype is that bass players are really nice, cool
Yeah,
problem solvers, making everybody happy.
yeah.
And I'm like the opposite. So yeah, anyway.
I didn't get that vibe until now, so yeah.
The pictures I can't see above you.
So these are
Yeah.
my heroes, and I just kind of put them
Yeah,
up
it's great
there.
because it's fuzzy, so it's wonderful. So I can just imagine, like, that almost looks like Cortot, but I can't tell who that is
Okay,
directly above you. It's
Thi-
not Cortot.
this
No.
guy, this is Federico
It
Mompo.
looks like Cort. Oh, that's Monpole. Okay.
Yeah, it's Tony and Miles,
Yeah.
uh,
Damn.
Charlie Parker and Dizzy, Coltrane, and I think Tommy Potter.
Oh, wow. It's amazing because it's just a blur, so I can't tell what anybody. Okay,
Oh,
that's cool.
I could just say anything. That's that's
Ye-
Beyonce.
Yeah, exactly. That's Abraham Lincoln with
Yeah,
Beyonce.
right.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I try to look for pictures of my heroes looking at the camera. So it's always like I want to have that look of like, okay, what are you
oh,
gonna come up with?
oh,
So
oh, that's cool. Yeah,
like a like they're daring me to do something. Like, I dare you to write a song now
that's
or
great.
something.
Yeah, right. Um, Mompu or Mompao, there were these records years ago. I used to have them on CD of him playing his own
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, it's still out there.
Are those still out there? Okay. There
It's
were
still
like
out
two or
there.
three volumes. It was, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think it's four. I have a 4 CD package, and it's called
Oh, nice.
Mompo
Okay.
Complete Piano Works or Mompo Plays
Oh,
Mompo, and that's the
and he's
shit, man.
playing. Yeah, yeah.
Nobody
That
plays
is
like
the shit
him.
because people would recommend it, and I listened to his music. I was like, oh, that's nice. But then when I heard him play it, I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
it's almost like with Monk in a way. It gets a different,
oh, for sure.
it sings so much deeper when he plays it.
For years, I tried to get away on the bandstand with pretending I didn't know any of the Monk tunes just because I didn't want to play them. I didn't
Okay,
want to hear me playing them or anybody else.
okay.
It's just, oh, it's brutal. I mean, maybe not for everybody, but yeah, it's kind of like what you're saying, but in another way.
But you have a very personal way of playing them, and I really like how you
The
play
Monk,
them. Yeah, the Monk
the
tunes.
Monk tunes,
Yeah.
all I hear when I play them is an amalgam of everything I've stolen, done not as good as the Cats did it. So it's just like, brr, it's kind of. But I guess what do they say that sometimes musicians are the worst judge of their own.
Mm.
It's why some people feel like you need a producer, or
Yeah.
because the musician might sit there like, oh, this is terrible,
Hmm.
I should just quit, and the producer's like, actually, why don't we just repeat the B section
Yeah,
or
yeah, right.
something more practical.
But don't you think what you just described of your own could perfectly, although we have all the admiration for our heroes, could be the same thing that they would say about themselves, that they were trying to learn from their masters and their heroes, and they failed in a way. And by failing, you find your own. That's your own thing.
I don't know if because a lot of the masters I learned from were already much older. I didn't get to talk to them when they were 20 something.
Yeah,
So I never heard what you just said. I heard something similar, but said with so much confidence and so much wisdom and maturity that it just sounded different than how I felt. Or I don't know, like for example, uh, Andrew Cyril mentioned doing an impression of his heroes, which
yeah.
I thought was beautiful. I wish I'd known that in my 20s, because I wouldn't have beaten myself up so bad for not sounding just like because I was just like, wow, what the fuck? I've practiced this so much and I can't even get close to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that you're not supposed to, you're supposed to do an impression, not an exact imitation.
Right.
I
Yeah,
was
man.
I was sort of thinking I needed to do an imitation and then build on that or put it together with
Yeah.
like.
I've heard this actor, what's his name? He's a funny guy. He plays in those Christopher Guest movies. Um, so
Michael McKean or
no, he's slightly younger, but he was in Best in Show. He was the spouse of Michael McKean.
oh that guy, he's great. I forget his name, but
He's
he's
incredible.
excellent.
So
Yeah.
he said in an interview he was talking about playing David Letterman, because there's a movie where he played David Letterman that was done by HBO or something. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so it was about the late night war type of situation, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
during that time. So he was playing David Letterman, and he talked about that he would stress out about the fact that people could just with one button could see the real guy and could see him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he thought a lot about what he should do, and then he became like, don't. He arrived at the thought, I shouldn't imitate, because with imitation, all the stuff that the people will only focus on the differences when you imitate. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
he's close, but his time isn't
Yeah.
good or whatever. His beard
Yeah.
is fake, or he wears a wig or something.
Right.
But if you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
something, do your own version of the guy you're trying to do. Present
there's-
your view of it, and then it
And it's
becomes
amazing that there's
personal.
enough room. Yeah. There's enough room for all those different views. That's
Yeah.
the amazing part.
Yeah,
Because when I was younger, I used to, if I were going to try to do an impression of somebody and then I saw Dana Carvey
yeah,
do an impression or some super virtuoso like that, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to quit.
yeah,
I'll never be able to do that.
yeah.
But Dana Carvey, I don't know if you ever saw him combine Arsenio Hall and Johnny Carson into one character.
No, I
called
haven't seen it.
Carcinio.
Oh no,
It's beyond incredible,
yeah,
but in that virtuoso way. But then you have Norm Macdonald doing Letterman,
yes,
and Norm is not a impressionist.
no,
But because he's so insightful about people, the stuff he does during his impression is what's funny. He's showing you things about Letterman that you always saw, but you didn't think through or didn't realize. It's not an accurate impression, but it's like an observation
yeah,
that a virtuoso might not be doing. Or it's
Yeah.
kind of amazing.
yeah,
So anyway, Andrew Cyril, like playing like Philly Joe Jones is a revelation to me. Like nobody's going to listen to the record and be like, the Philly Joe shit.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
hmm
But it has a similar power that is kind of what we want anyway, right? We just want the effect. It's not the literal.
just the
Stuff.
notes of what they played.
Yeah, we want the sound feeling. We don't want. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, there's those notes. Or yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it makes sense.
So this is your piano. You're in your house.
hmm
Yeah. What's your piano?
I have a Yamaha from the 70s,
Oh wow.
and I grew up playing on it. I mean, I grew up listening to my father play it. And
Oh.
then he bought a new one 10, 15 years ago, and then went back to my grandma. She passed away almost maybe 14 years ago, 13 years ago. And then it went back to my father, and my father said, you're studying music, you have an upright, you should have a grand piano. And so I got it, and I've been playing on it since then.
Oh, so there's a lot of piano playing in your family then.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, my father
Wow.
is a pianist, and my mother is a piano technician. So there's a lot of piano in.
I don't want to
house.
steal. I don't want to steal the interview, but I'll just ask one
Man,
more
it's
question.
not. I mean, interview. I don't care about interviews. I want to connect and
Okay, okay,
talk
good.
to you. You know.
Okay, good. So the first time I heard you play, I was very struck by the sound. I
Hmm.
was I was really surprised um, by how beautiful and together the sound was, as if it wasn't hard to do.
Wow,
And
thank
for a
you.
lot of us, trying to have a good sound is fucking hard. And I was just like, man, if I ever meet that guy, I got to ask him if something runs in the family or if he grew up around. Because you make it sound like, not like it's no big deal, but you make it sound like you've talked to enough people or been around enough of something to know how to produce a sound like that, which is no joke. It's not easy, not only physically, but conceptually,
Mm.
everything.
Wow, thank you.
Was that something that kind of came natural through the family, or did you put a lot of work into that, or both? Or
Well, I love how my father sounds on the instrument, and he's shown me since I was a little kid. He's shown me the great players, classical and
oh yeah, yeah,
improvising. So sounds of Keith and Herbie and Bill Evans and Mompo, Horowitz, guys like that. I know very well. So I maybe have had an aesthetic or an ear for that type of thing. But then when I came to Cologne to study, I had an amazing teacher. At first, I studied with John Taylor, who was great, great human being, great teacher as well. But then I had Hubert Nuss, who is a an incredible teacher, an incredible pianist, and he taught me a lot about sound and how to produce the sound. And he said, "You're doing a lot of things naturally already, but let me help you." And that came right in the time when I had tendonitis. You know,
oh wow,
I was carrying a lot of Fender Rhodes to shitty little gigs. Because you know, I I was playing little gigs, so I had to find something to play on, and was borrowing Fender Rhodes. So I had a lot of tendonitis, and also it became through tendonitis came through stressing when I was trying to play fast.
yeah,
The usual thing. You kind of tense up, and he showed me a way that he told me I had the tendency to already do it in a way, but he taught me to put all my to how should I put it, to use everything from body weight. So the note is not coming from here, it comes from here,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
it has to flow through here, so there can't be any tension or any barrier or something. It has to be natural. So how does your hand look when it's natural? Like, does it look like this or like this? No.
yeah,
When I walk, it looks like this. So
yeah,
I should
yeah,
maybe put it like that on the piano. Um, how can I um, work against, like when you carry a baby and the baby is crying, it's tense and it's very light. But if you carry a baby and it's asleep, it's super heavy,
it's
right?
crazy. Yeah, it's true.
So
It's
it's the
crazy.
same way with sound as well. So if you put a very heavy hand on the piano, it sounds so much bigger than if you would just do this, because I mean it's natural.
Yeah, yeah,
If you hold a drumstick like this, the sound is different, maybe very light. It can be a nice aesthetic, but
yeah,
if you hold it like this, which just at the tip, that also doesn't happen so often. So you have to find a balance. But
yeah,
it sounds bigger if you hit it like this, or you have more kind of
yeah,
you have more weight to it. So he would give me all these kind of little secrets and on how to unlock the. I mean, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but you asked. So uh,
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
you fall asleep and you lie on your arm, or the person you're in bed with is falling asleep on your arm, and sometimes then you wake up and then you notice, oh shit, my arm is asleep, and you realize how heavy an arm can be.
yeah,
To play with that helped me um, and also I really had to practice this. I'm not a really big practicer or anything of technical exercises, but I would really practice that every time when I go to the piano, I would just use all the all the strength, all the weight, and have that
Yeah.
become subconscious. So every time I touch the piano, it shouldn't be an effort. It should
Yeah.
just be relaxing.
Yeah.
And if I then he showed me videos of Herbie playing and Bill Evans playing, Daniel Barenboim playing, you know, all the masters
Yeah.
that I respected and he respected on a sound level, and there would never be seen any movement. It is always relaxed, and
Yeah.
yeah, if you would just see them from here, you wouldn't notice, like in movies when somebody's playing a piano player, they're always moving, and it's always
Yeah. Yeah.
very
Yeah. Yeah.
unnatural.
Yeah.
But with the greatest players, it usually looks like no effort, no work at all.
Even
So
Keith.
Keith is an interesting exception because, and he says also, he himself says, I would not recommend how I do things to other people. you know.
Yeah.
So he's an
It's
interesting example, and also I wouldn't say that this is a universal thing that works for everybody, but I felt like it's easier for me to do it like that.
I have a pocket theory about Keith that's I don't really believe. That's why I call it a pocket theory, but um, it's a little bit similar to Herbie's thing of like making himself get lost, so he kind of tricks himself into being creative, or
Yeah,
he forces himself into the creative space of real improvising, which is like being trapped in a room and you're looking for, oh, what's in here?
yeah,
I got a stuffed animal and some matches and
yeah.
an empty water bottle. Maybe I can use these to get out of this room.
MacGyver style.
That kind of improvising.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, MacGyver stuff. And I always thought that Keith was doing that also, just physically, like
Right.
not thinking about the body and whatever it would take to sort of force your way, knock on the door of like, I want to go in this space and hear things in that space, whatever it takes. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
everybody
Yeah.
complaining about his singing or his hysterics or whatever they call
Yeah.
it, I'm not saying it's hysterics, always bummed me out because I thought, man, you're getting some great music. Can you just leave it at that?
Yeah.
Like it's however he gets there. Let's his business. That's my pocket theory, but
Absolutely, it makes sense. How do you connect this to
yeah.
Mazabumi?
To Masabumi,
Yeah,
did you say? I don't know anything about Masabumi. I didn't play with him very much, so
I have a
and I,
bootleg
I
of
only
you
went over to his
guys
house one
playing.
time. Oh yeah, who's on it?
It's you,
Is it the one with Thomas?
Thomas Morgan, and Paul Motion, and Lawrence Stillman.
Oh, okay.
And
I have a
also, I
bootleg
have a
that
record.
I made from them.
This one.
Oh, was that Creston's record?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
great record.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have a little bootleg I made testing out a new recorder. I put it on that thing with Thomas. I put it on the music stand that Thomas and I were sharing, so it's a little bit bass heavy. If I can find it,
Yeah,
I'll
please
send you a
do.
clip from that because it was kind of a hilarious microphone perspective. But
So,
because I in my mind I was thinking Thomas is playing with Masabumi, I'm playing with Paul, and we've
ah,
got like a double rhythm section. I
okay.
mean, of course, that's probably not really what happened, but you play games in your mind of whatever,
Mm,
of whatever's going on.
yeah.
And I mean, I was pretty sure Masabumi hated my playing also. So I was like, okay, perfect. So he likes Thomas. So Thomas is set up over here and I'm over here with Paul and
Why did you
we'll
get
be
that
cool.
impression? What made you think?
I don't know. I felt like he was one of those. Do you ever have authors that you feel like you're not in the right headspace to read, or you're going to sort of, you can't go into the book unless you're going to go all in,
Totally, yeah.
sort of.
Yeah.
Like you can't just read a chapter and be like, oh, that's interesting. I'll come back to that, or
Yeah.
I'll put it in the pile of the other 7 books I'm reading right now. For me, Masabumi was a little bit like that. I went over to his house. The first time I met him was at his house. And maybe that was a mistake, because I spent the whole afternoon with him, and I had the feeling that if I wasn't going to go all in with this guy, there wouldn't be any relationship at all. I may be totally wrong, but I just had that feeling. And for whatever reason, I don't know if I was too old or it just wasn't my camp or whatever, I just wasn't going to go all in.
What does it
And
mean for you to go all in?
to
Like with
join
him?
the philosophy, to join the morals of the artistic society of that crew, or the crew of one, or the crew of the 18 people in his head, or I don't know, whatever it is. That, I mean, I love people who are like that, and I'm sure I'm like that too. I love semi-crazy or crazy people. I'm not saying Masabumi's crazy. I'm saying I'm crazy. So, I don't know how to explain that all-in thing. And I'm sure I'm wrong about Masabumi. Thomas would know much more. And I think I tried to say some things to Thomas sometimes, like to check my math, because he's so smart and so calm. And I would feel like he was gently trying to talk me down from the crazy, like, yeah, I see what you mean, but maybe it's not like that. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't say that, but that was the vibe a little bit. But I don't know. Is this making any sense? I'm not sure how to explain
Well,
the thing with
it's fine.
Masabumi,
It's
but
fine. I get it. You know, sometimes I can relate to that book analogy. You know, or
oh yeah,
sometimes with some relationships you have to invest emotionally and you know, time wise, also spiritually, maybe, I don't know. And for some relationships there's not it's not the right time to, you know, for you don't feel at ease enough to give that investment at that moment, maybe. So yeah,
yeah.
I can relate to that.
Without, which is tricky to say because it might imply judgment, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's not a judgment thing. It's like, I know I'm not going to be in a reggae band anytime soon, but that doesn't mean I like semi-acoustic, semi-modern jazz more than reggae. It means nothing like
yeah,
that, of course. It just, and I guess, you know, when I play with Andrew Cyril or John Schofield or Bill Frisell or Billy Hart, there's a no-brainer thing that happens. Maybe it's because I can hear what they're doing, and so it makes me more comfortable to play because I feel like I can hear what they're doing, so I can hear
yeah,
a place for me. And with Masabumi, maybe it was because of Thomas and I'd already heard them together, and I was like, damn, you got it, you
yeah,
know. So maybe I didn't even give myself a chance, but I felt like I could only hear him on the ballads. When it was faster, I couldn't totally relate or hear what he was doing.
yeah,
I'm sure I would have been able to if I had opened up to it, but maybe I was being lazy and just being like, "Oh, Thomas, you got it.
yeah,
That's the shit."
yeah.
So,
Well, I didn't have that information when I listened to the bootleg, obviously, and the recording.
oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I loved it. You know, and
Oh yeah.
and
I mean, this information is so useless that, I mean, anybody can hear the record and won't hear this
you know,
drama.
it reminded me also about Dave Liebman telling me about a recording on the corner with Miles, and he said he only heard like he didn't hear the whole ensemble when he played his solos. He was recording at the same time, but he he may only have heard like Herbie's piano a little bit and percussion and Miles or something. It was a very weird combination of things that he heard at that time, where Miles was just
Were
yeah,
they
just play, go ahead and play.
the producer was deliberately feeding his headphones only certain things? Is
I
that
don't
what?
know. I don't know how this happened. He just told it to me and said like, yeah, I didn't really hear the whole band. I just heard parts of it, and Miles just wanted me to play, so I just played, and he was reacting to that. And in the whole scheme of things, it's beautiful how it's put together,
Wow.
you know.
Yeah.
So that reminded me a little bit of what you were talking about, just trying to hold on or to connect with Paul.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, even now thinking about it, I think Thomas told me the same thing about their recording with Masabumi and Paul Motion, that Masabumi didn't believe in headphones, so he didn't use headphones, although Paul and him weren't in the same room recording their ECM trio recording, you know. And they sound pretty much together, you know.
It reminds me of all the Paul Bley stories. He's the king of that crazy stuff. Oh my God.
Did you ever get to play with Paul Bley?
No,
No.
I might have passed out of nervousness or something. I don't know. He's like, I mean, I saw him a bunch of times, and I didn't even try to talk to him. I would just stand near and listen to. Did you ever meet him?
No.
Or
No.
yeah, he would definitely hold court, which was great because then you could be 2 or 3 people away from him, so that you wouldn't have to talk and or get called on or whatever. And then he would just be saying the most amazing, crazy stuff
Yeah.
forever. It's- he came. We had a band with Kurt Rosenwinkel and Mark Turner and Jeff Ballard that used to play at Smalls every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And one night, Kurt and I came out on the break, and there was Paul Bley waiting in line to come in. And Kurt was like, "Oh, that's Paul Bley." He didn't. For Kurt, I think at that time, Paul wasn't the iconic hero that he was to me, and I just about passed out. I was like, "Can I go home sick or call in a sub or like
Yeah.
I don't want to play in front of Paul Bley, like,
Yeah.
or should I go convince him not to come in?" And so all during the second set, I was trying not to do it, but I kept looking at the door, like, is Paul coming in? Is he in the club already? And I never saw him. And then after the second set, I went back outside, and he was still in the same spot. But now he had a group around him of about 15 people, and he was just talking. And so I stood 2 or 3 people away, and man, the stuff he was saying was unbelievable.
Do you remember something?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, somebody asked, there were some people who knew some stuff, and they were like, what was it like playing with Jocko?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're asking Paul what it was like playing with Jocko? I mean, he was already older than Jocko,
Yeah.
but it was great. And then Paul never said a word about Jocko. He just started talking about what it's like to play in Latin bands, and he was going on and on and on about Latin bands, and I was just dying. It was
Wow. Can you tell me something about your favorite recordings of him? Paul Bley's recordings?
of Paul.
Yeah.
I think by far number one is the solo record "Open to Love."
Yeah.
I think it's recorded at his house.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I think it
ECM
sounds
recording
like
at a
it.
house. Okay. Wow.
I think that's some early days when
Yep.
maybe Manfred would accept that, or from an artist like that. You know, Paul was famous for carrying around albums in his pockets, like, and cornering label people, like, I have a new album for sale, and they're like, "Oh no, we don't have any room on the roster right now for a solo piano." Well, I have a trio album.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't know what he was doing in the analog days, but later in the 80s or 90s, whenever it was, he would have DATs
Yeah.
in his overcoat pocket, DAT tapes, and these are the stories I've heard. But check out that record again. I can't believe that Jan Erik or any engineer in Munich would have recorded an album that way. It doesn't sound
Yeah. It's a long
that
time since I listened to
pristine.
it, but I used to listen to it a lot. I think Closer is
Maybe I'm
on
wrong
there.
because Facing You is isn't the piano a little out of tune and kind of janky on
Yeah, yeah,
Facing You?
Facing You. But also, I mean, Paul Bley's first recording for ECM is kind of wild from the sound also. You know, the one,
Which
that's Paul Bley with Gary Peacock. And it
just the
has,
duo, right?
no, it has Paul Motion and Billy Elgart on one or
Oh,
two
Billy
tracks.
Elgart's on. Is Billy Elgart on the whole record?
He's on a couple of tracks. So they play
Right.
Long Ago and Far Away and
Yeah.
When Will the Blues Leave? And that's I mean,
And some of
horrible
that.
sound, but
Yeah.
I mean, I love the record. You know, it's
It's a
incredible.
great record.
But I
Yeah,
think
it's killing.
it's his first record on ECM.
Yeah, I love Paul so much. It's
Yeah,
oof. Yeah.
yeah. We talked about playing with Thomas Morgan, and
Oof.
I want to know how it feels. Yeah, how it was for you to play with him, and what you I don't know. What do you think about his playing? What's your view on how he does things?
Um, the first time I played with him was that Creston record,
Hmm.
and after we finished the album, when I woke up the next day at home, I had a really strange feeling that I didn't recognize, that I'd never had before in my life. And I didn't know what it was. So I just went about my day. And then gradually I realized it was a feeling of that I didn't want to play. I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to touch the bass. And I'm like, well, why the fuck do I have that feeling? Nothing bad happened. I had a good time on the record date. Is this what people talk about when you don't want to play anymore? Or yeah, I
Hmm.
was very confused. And then mid-afternoon it hit me. Oh, I don't want to play because Thomas isn't here. It's like
Oh.
it's way more fun to play bass with Thomas.
Mm.
And that blew my mind because I've always hated two bass situations
Hmm.
and didn't care for two bass albums, and I didn't
Mm.
even like singer and bass. And a lot of singers like to break it down to singer and bass at some point
Mm.
in their sets, or even want to do entire gigs. So that blew my mind,
Hmm.
and that's how much I love Thomas. Yeah, he's incredible,
Mm.
so
Nice.
fun to play with.
Hmm. Um, I want to talk to you about a topic, and it's related to two quotes that I would like to confront you with.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and the quotes are about you, and the question is what you expect from your fellow musicians. So the first quote,
The quotes are about me, or the quotes are from me.
the quotes are about you. The first one is from Ted Poor,
Oh, okay.
and Ted says,
Oh,
I read an interview where he says, I feel a very strong opinion from Ben concerning what he wants from the music. He's a bass player that forces me to listen to every note that he plays.
hmm.
And this is,
That sounds
it.
that sounds like a drag.
No, it's
Um,
maybe I should have put it into more of a context, but he's saying super nice things about you before and after, and I think this is this is connected to the nice things he says.
Because I guess that's what's hard about quotes, or when you're texting with someone. I have to be so careful when I'm texting because it looks a certain way that it doesn't sound.
Right? Yeah.
And I want to say outrageous things all the time. And also when I'm texting, but
Yeah.
then I look at the text before I send it, and I'm just like, "There's no way."
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
shouldn't.
obviously, we all know this, and this is a big problem with Facebook and Instagram,
Yeah.
and one of the reasons why Nick Payton is such a hero of mine, because he he just goes ahead and posts or send, and it's beautiful. People get really flipped out, but I love it, and it's,
Mm.
at least I feel like I understand it and can see through the words and
Yeah.
hear it. Anyway, what Ted's saying, I don't know what he means by that, because my surface impression or my quick impression is that it's a little bit of a bully sounding thing. Like,
Uh,
but I
I
don't think he means it that way.
no, and also
No.
I read the whole interview and I didn't take it that way.
Yeah,
But
I know Ted, and I think he would tell me if he took it that way.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we've talked a lot about music, and yeah,
yeah. But why I'm asking you this is I think we all have certain needs for the music or for our fellow musicians or virtues that we respect in other musicians or that we would like to have around us
yeah,
because they rub off on ourselves also, I can't
yeah,
be with people who are impatient because I'm impatient. And if somebody's going to be impatient, that makes me even more impatient. You know what I mean?
Do I know what you mean? It sounds like the Prokofiev Diaries. Did you ever read those?
No, I didn't. No.
He was always talking like that. It's super hilarious. Like,
Oh, okay. I'll check it
this
out.
woman walks too slow for me. I can't marry this woman. It's like totally incredible, insane. But I mean, my little mythic dream is that I would, if I were playing with a piano player, I would want to play in such a way that they don't have to listen to me unless something catches their ear,
Hmm.
like to provide a kind of feeling where they can relax and go into their own world or go into their own dream space and not worry about the bass, because Ben's playing the bass, so I can not worry about that. My
Hmm.
worst case scenario for playing with a pianist is a super controlling pianist who has it all scripted what the drums and bass should do, and don't go out of that zone because you're going to fuck me up, and this is my gig,
Yeah.
you know which is fine, and I might even want to listen to those pianists. I just don't want to play with them.
Yeah.
And and it's not because I'm a big baby who has to change the rules every bar. It's just not what I'm good at. I'm not good at making sure I stay in the zone. It's not one of my strengths.
Hmm.
So to be fair to them, I'm like, yeah, yeah, you probably shouldn't hire me. No,
Mm.
but man, I like the way you play. I'm like, no, 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 please. You're not going to like playing with me. No, no, no. And then I go do it. And then they're like, I told you. I
Yeah.
told you you're not going to like it. And
When
it's not a value judgment. I love bass players who can stay in the zone, and it's beautiful. For whatever reason, it's just not one of my
mm.
something I'm good at. Psychologically, not musically.
Uh-huh.
I could probably do it.
When did you start noticing this in you?
That's a good question. Last week. It feels like it was only last week. Um, no, I feel like I've known it all along. I just didn't know whether it was okay or not. Like,
Hmm.
is that a weakness I have to work on, or do I need a therapist, or like, can this be worked with?
Mm.
Not worked with for a career, but can anyone have fun playing with this?
Mm.
It's it's a little bit of the challenge of, um, you want to be free, but you would like to play harmony. You'd like to be free, but with this groove. It's musicians that like a certain amount of tightness, but not too tight, and then a certain amount of looseness, but not, don't bring the blender to the gig. It's not going to be that experimental.
Hmm.
This kind of, and everybody's like that to some degree.
Mm.
It's just where on the spectrum do you fall?
Yeah.
That's why these words are descriptor words or genre words are so best left to the critics, because we musicians just don't fucking know. You have no
Yeah.
idea. Maybe even the blender comment I made was wrong. Depends on what kind of blender and how it's mic'd.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's true. It takes a lot of courage also to say no to things.
Oh man, yeah, I'm not there yet with enough of that courage, but I really admire the people who who really say no or yes, that's just incredible. Or who will be okay with the disappointment of other people. That's really hard for me. There's some musicians I love that I can't really feel comfortable playing with because I know I don't play the way that they would prefer all the way. And that's tough for me because I love these musicians, but it's just something I have to accept about. I'm going to love them off the bandstand and on records, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's really, really hard to explain, and you certainly can't explain it in a phone call super easily.
Yeah.
Like when I was saying, if someone calls me for the gig, I don't even know. There's only a few people I've said that to because I trusted that we were friends. And of course, the phone call didn't go well. They thought I was being passive aggressive, or I just didn't want to do the gig, or it's very awkward sometimes to just say the straight, unfiltered truth, at least in the United States. Maybe it's easier in Germany. But.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to compare, I guess. But
I can only compare because we have this stereotype of Germans taking a point of honor of telling the truth. I don't know if you've heard that stereotype outside of,
Yeah, sure. No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think it's an important topic for a lot of people to work on saying no or saying yes to the right things, and then maybe worrying about, if I say no to this, is he going to tell all his friends that I said no, and stuff like that. Am I going to be able to sustain a living in this if the word spreads that I'm saying no to stuff, And what really gave me strength in maybe trying this a little bit was I've read an interview of Michael Brecker where he says, like, okay, I work too much, and then I just said no to a couple of more things. And he, as you know, he would play with, almost everybody,
I know, that's amazing that it was him. He's on so many records.
Yes, but he said, like, it was interesting because he said, yeah, I wanted not to do everything, so I thought about how I should do it, but I had to face it. I had to raise my fee. And he said he raised his fee, and then he got even more calls, weirdly.
That's, oh my God, that is the strangest thing. Like, I can't sell this table. Well, that's because you're trying to sell it for $50.
Yeah.
Sell it for $5,000 and it'll be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's deep. I never heard that story from Michael because, I remember LP shopping and like, what the fuck? Michael Brecker's on this? Like, I know he was practicing 14 hours a day and then also studying FM synthesis for his EWI and whatever. Like, how the fuck does he have time to...
Incredible musician. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk to you about Buster Williams.
Oof. Wow.
Because I feel like, and I've read a couple of comments of yours talking about him, but I want to know more about your connection to him, about what you admire about him, and because the more I focused then on this aspect, or what my perception of Buster Williams is, that I can't really put into words, but what this thing about what I like about Buster Williams, I try to, once I heard that he's a big influence on you, I kind of had him in mind a little bit more once I then went back and listened to your stuff, And at first I couldn't put it together, but the more I listened to you with that in mind, I could put it more and more together. Although I can verbalize it, which is why I'm asking you.
Can you hear the Mark Johnson influence? That's another one that nobody.
Yeah, honestly, I can't.
And I feel like I get away with murder, like we all do. Like,
sure, yeah.
I mean, I was never trying to imitate Mark exactly or Buster exactly, but I love them both so much that I thought, I'm going to be so busted, or and also Mark, and I've had to play gigs in front of both of them, and I thought I was going to be just destroyed, and neither one of them were angry afterwards. I was like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, once you invest and spend a lot of time with, you're going to come out the other way, because
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
impression thing that we talked about. Because you can only do an impression of somebody if you really know him. And once you really know him, you're going to bring out the aspects that mean the most to you. And when you bring them out, they're going to come out you, I guess,
Yeah. Hopefully so. Yeah, for sure. Buster is do you want me to talk about Buster, or
Yeah, whatever.
I'm just being careful because I could talk forever.
Please do.
Um,
Please talk forever.
um, I don't want to say Buster's underrated because, everybody's underrated, and Keith is underrated, I think, big time because of the way people talk about him. It
In a way,
disgusts me.
they don't get the
Yeah,
real
like what?
stuff.
Yeah, that exactly.
Yeah.
Like we talked about before. Um, for that matter, Bach is underrated, and because everybody just says it like it's a thing that they know,
Yeah.
which is the worst kind of reference,
Like
Oh yeah,
ginger,
Bach.
ginger
Oh my
is good
God.
for you.
Yeah, exactly. Now, where's my fucking Big Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you swear on these? Can I
Yeah, sure.
curse?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, you can.
So,
It's fine.
so getting back to Buster and what I meant by underrated is, I've heard a lot of people sort of accuse Buster of sounding like Ron, which just is so depressing to me, and they'll say a bunch of other things too, which are far worse. Ugh, I get so upset. But he's I don't know, just that thing I was talking about how I want a pianist to feel when I'm playing. I feel like Buster's just the king of that, more than maybe anybody. And I don't like to rate
Yeah.
musicians or records, but for that particular quality, I just would imagine every pianist having him on the list of, I got to play with Buster someday. I got to feel what that feels like, to play. And I've heard a bunch of pianists say that, and they confirmed it.
Like who?
Well, Billy Drummond told me that Cedar used to always say, "Well, I got to get me some Williams. Like it's been too long. Like I need some Williams in my life." And I was like, "Yes, I can just. That's how I would think the pianists would feel."
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. There's that record, "Free Spirits" of Mary Lou Williams,
Yeah.
which
I
very
just listened
much
to this today. Yeah.
illustrates what I'm talking about. Yeah. And then, of course, I've heard a million stories from so many musicians about how people have how people have felt playing with Buster. And Billy Hart has great stories about Shirley Horn's reaction because Billy brought him into that date. Yeah, it's nice to have your feelings confirmed or your intuitions confirmed when you talk to the. As to technical specifics, I don't know how to talk about that, but about Buster's playing.
Did you get to talk to him?
I've talked to him in the clubs a little bit, and I took a lesson from him, which was incredible. It was awesome.
Talk about the lesson.
And, he just, I had no idea what was going to happen, but he gave me it was basically like a fourth lesson for a beginner. Like it wasn't the open strings of the bass, but it was 3 lessons after that, which was which was completely perfect. And I mean, he was yelling at me like, "Where's that B flat?" Like just like
Wow.
it was fantastic.
But
It
why?
was just the greatest
How did you
sports
get?
coach.
How did you get there? I mean, when was this? I mean, how did you arrive
This
at a
was like,
fourth
what was
lesson?
this, like 5 or 6 years ago, or 6 or 7?
Wow.
Well, first of all, I couldn't play in front of him. Um, he asked me to, the first thing he asked me to do was walk something for him, which for me was like the worst thing he could have asked me to. He should have asked me to do my impression of a Chopin piece on the bass or something, but would have been easier. So I was frantically scanning, okay, what's the tune I feel the most comfortable with that I've worked on so much? And for some reason, Aerogen came to mind. And then I'm trying to think of a tempo I'm going to walk by myself in front of Buster Williams on. And whatever it was, I just start playing and I start F minor. And then that's it. I had no idea what the next chord
Everything is
change
gone.
was because I had a feeling like, is it G flat 7 or is it C7? And then that was enough.
Yeah.
That critical question was enough to topple the whole fuck if it's G flat 7 or C7. I don't even know what happens after that or why
Yeah.
or what the hell key are we in. And I was gone.
You were starstruck.
So the walking just, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The walking completely disintegrated. And then he kind of shifted in his chair and he's like, okay, let's hear a B flat major scale. That was beautiful. And then, and then he started critiquing the left hand, and everything he said was correct and fantastic. And I was timing it with my iPhone because I was so nervous. And I kept looking like 46 minutes, 49 minutes, 53 minutes. And when it was 59 minutes, I was like, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Williams. And I need to pay you. Like the hour is up. I didn't want him to suffer anymore. And and he said, "Call me Buster, and you're not going anywhere." And I
Wow.
had to stay longer. And by the end of it, he was playing bass and singing for me, and it was incredible because I was asking him about his tunes, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. Any advice that he shared with you that you think back now
Well, he told me
about?
that classic story that he tells in interviews too of um, one time in the '60s when he was bummed, listening to Miles and Ron, and he's playing in a band that was good, but they weren't doing what Miles and Ron were doing. And he was um, feeling like he was missing out on the cutting edge stuff or whatever. And he came to his dad's house one night after a gig and was bummed out. And his dad was like, "What's the matter?" And he told him. And his dad sort of cussed him out. It was like, "Look, every time you get on the bandstand is a chance to learn. You need to grow up, all that kind of tough talk."
Mm.
This is incredible,
Yeah.
just beautiful.
Wow.
And I think that's my big takeaway from getting a chance to play with some of my heroes, or getting to play at the Village Vanguard, or some things that were dreams, or I hope I can do that type of situations, and then seeing the same old baggage of mine be there, that was the same baggage that was in the bagel shop in the small town where I played, you know stomping at the Savoy on electric bass, or when I was 14 or whatever. It's just like, oh, you again. Yeah, it's
Mm.
the same. It doesn't matter. And so it's same lessons I have to learn. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
where there's not like, oh, I've arrived here now.
Mm.
The arrived here now stuff happens at home with Bach and with Scarlatti and with Monpeau and with Duke Ellington. That's all at home. And nobody told me that. So
How do you
the
mean that? I mean studying the masters at
yeah,
home.
studying and then understanding.
Yeah, like light bulb
That's the big
situations.
success. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then don't you feel more equipped sometimes with that in your backpack when you then go to a
Oh,
gig?
sure. Then you can go do the puppet show or the stand-up comedy or cook the meal or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't have the overview of what is performing and what is studying, what is practicing and what is performing. I had a lot of very romantic young man ideas about the bandstand
Like
from
what?
maybe reading downbeat too much when I was a kid or something. I don't know what, but I thought maybe it would go into this sacred space on the bandstand or this trance and if I wasn't in that trance, it was bullshit. I wasn't playing for real or I wasn't and I remember being very much in that in the 90s and then meeting up with Larry Grenadier for lunch and talking about stuff. And I was asking him how it's going playing. And he said he was looking off into space and he was like, yeah, I feel like I'm thinking too much when I play. And I was like, yeah, exactly. If he's thinking that, times 1,000 for me, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not only thinking too much, I'm judging too much, I'm
Mm-hmm.
worrying too much, and you know, and and it's nice to have a lot of that go away when you realize the real work is at home, and this is performing, for better or for worse. It's a show, not to I'm not trying to put a diminution on the on the live gig or say that's not what's up. At home is what's up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean that. I just mean I don't need to stress the bandstand with there needs to be magic, there needs to be a trance, there needs to be, otherwise it's not really music. Or
Right.
I don't need to make some kind of recipe demand for the bandstand.
Mm-hmm.
Like music is more powerful than that. The music can take care of
And
itself.
those words, you mean, or those virtues that everybody talks about, you know?
Say the virtues people talk about,
Yeah,
or
you mean music is more than those words like trance or being in the
yeah,
moment or those.
exactly. And it's not all about you. Like it's
Mm,
you, just like cooking is not, seriously, not all about you. You can't take all the credit. So you certainly
mm-hmm,
can't take all the credit in the music
mm.
if you sound good.
It's true,
There's a
yeah.
lot of people that helped you, yeah,
Yeah, right.
people you never met, and yeah.
But when did you arrive at this thought? I mean, or also
Last Thursday.
a lot of stuff happened last week, man. Yeah, I suppose it was gradual, right? I mean,
Yeah, I always say last Thursday because I wish it was much sooner, is what I mean.
mm,
Yeah. Because I remember a lot of struggles I had in my 20s, arguments with musicians and with myself. They would really get me agitated because I could see both sides of the fight. But meanwhile, I was trying to defend my position because it's a fight. But I would get so frustrated because I could see their side too. And I was like, man, I just didn't know how to stop fighting or shut up because it was a noble struggle. And this is a good, I really romanticized those days of whatever it was, 1905, 1910 in Paris, when the painters would paint all day and then they would meet at some
yeah,
rough bar and have cheap wine and sit at a big rough table and fight each other about who had the ultimate theory of
yeah,
art.
yeah, yeah,
I thought that was just the shit.
yeah. Who do you have these kind
And
of
it is.
discussions with?
Back in the day, it was a lot with Kurt Rosenwinkel and Ben Monder and Larry Grenadier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it could have been a ton of people. Those were just um, the ones who were around and
Yeah,
available. I know I'm leaving out like a bunch of people. I'm just trying to think. Kurt was a great one because he was um, so intense and ready for combat. Yeah. Besides being super smart and
of
all
course.
the yeah.
Yeah. talk about taking lessons with with heroes. I heard you studied with Miroslav Vitus.
Oh my God, yeah, he's the guy I studied with the longest um, since I was a kid, because I'm from a state called Maine, and which is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and um, he had a summer house up there, so I would go there at first, and then to his regular place. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he was incredible for me as a teacher.
Yeah, what was he like as a teacher?
Um, he had he had he had this Czechoslovakian tradition. I don't know how far back it went. That was very similar to other countries' traditions of learning the double bass. But I don't know if it was because of the Czech teacher that he studied with, or that method book, or it was Miroslav's very personal approach. But it just felt like I could finally deal with the method book and deal with the tradition of this is the way you play the bass, otherwise you're not playing. Because I hated it when it was presented from other countries' method books. And maybe those method books were fine. Maybe I just needed the right teacher.
Yeah.
But also this Czech method book, I could relate to the etudes. And before that, I never could relate to an etude. I thought, why should I ever play this? I wouldn't want to play this or hear this. Why should I
Yeah.
practice it? And the Czech etudes were hipper. They sounded more like real folk songs or something. And
Do you remember who
it
wrote
would
it?
be I think the guy's name might have been František Prosta, or he was the one teaching the book to Miroslav. Maybe the book is older, but we had to photocopy the book from Miroslav because it wasn't in print, and there was no title page,
I see. Okay.
so there was no name of who, and we had to pay for it ourselves. No, of course. Um, but the amazing thing is sometimes Miroslav would play piano,
Mm.
just making up a little chorale with the A2 is fantastic.
Wow.
And just being around somebody like that um, was amazing. Yeah, I could go on and on and on. I
Please
love
go
his
on.
playing also, which is good. Yeah. Well, Miroslav was, shall we say, a very confident person, which was which was good for me because I love the woods and the ocean and going outside. And the only thing that was going to get me to practice would be that I'm studying with some kind of god,
Yeah.
or, I have to trust my teacher because I don't want to scrape the bow across the strings and do these scales and arpeggios. I'd rather go out in the woods and,
Yeah.
with a book about Scarlatti or something. I still would be studying music, but I wouldn't be scraping the strings.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Yeah. Or go to a coffee shop and try Nietzsche one more time. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, there's a lot of stories there about Miroslav's antics with his confidence, which were fantastic for me. I loved it. A lot of the other students were offended and thought his ego was too big, or thought he was a great player but not a great teacher. And I was just blown away because I thought he was the best teacher. So, and I couldn't find any other student who felt that way. It was strange. I mean, I'm sure I could now. That was just my particular class at the school.
You were taught with others together?
Well, I studied with him when I was a kid, and then he helped me get into a school where he was teaching. And then it was normal college. There were 8 other bass students under him.
Did you ask him about some of your favorite records that he?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some kind of stories that you would like to share?
Well, he was just so funny in ways that I wouldn't expect, because the kind of confident stuff that he was talking about in the lessons was not humorous. It was very, very confident. Anyway, but then he would have this amazing humor. I would try to be cool, like, because I know a lot of records, and from listening to your interviews, it sounds like you know a lot of records too. So sometimes when you're around the cats, you like to, you don't want to just be formal. You want to show that you kind of know a lot of records. So I, instead of asking about trio music or Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, I'd say, hey, what's Roy Haynes doing this summer? And I asked that stupid, deliberately casual young man kind of question. And Miroslav gave me a funny look and he went, what's he up to? He's did it. You know, he did this musical impression of Roy that was
Yep.
hilarious. Like, yeah, stupid question. Of
Yep.
course, that's what Roy's up to this
Yeah,
summer.
of course. Yeah. Yeah, wow. What's your favorite record of his?
Of Roy or Miroslav?
Miroslav.
Of Miroslav. Wow. Ooh, boy, that is a tough one. It's probably his own records with Kenny Kirkland
Yeah.
and John Christensen and
Mm-hmm.
John Sermon. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, probably by far. Yeah. First Meeting
Mm-hmm.
and I forgot the name of the other one. Might be just Miroslav Quartet. I don't know.
Both of
Is
them
Kenny
are,
on both of those? I don't.
well, I think he's on two.
He's on two.
On two on ECM, I think.
Yeah, I think First Meeting is one, and I think I forgot the name of the other. But wow, yeah, that's a hell of a quartet.
Yeah, totally. I also like when one John Taylor is playing with him. You know, there's another
Yeah, I was
nice.
thinking maybe John was on the other album.
That could be. I forgot the name of the record where John is on.
But it's Miroslav's record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, and it's Christensen and John Sermon again.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and there's some Terrier Ripdahl
Yeah,
trio
with
records
Jack.
with Dijonette.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have a specific vibe.
yeah.
Talk about specific vibes. One of my favorite records is Balladeering by Jacob Bro.
Oh, Jakob. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me? I mean, I've seen the documentary and I've talked to Jakob, but I want to know your take on the recording. How was it for you?
I was just happy that Uncle Lee was playing so great. I was just so worried that he was going to be too grumpy to play, or that he was going to be kind of dissing the tunes like D minor again or something. I don't know. You know, with him, I was expecting anything, but he sounds incredible. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It's one of my favorite records of him because it's so special
Oh
to
man.
hear him in such a different context, but doing what he does, but then it becomes something even more special or unique than, I mean,
Yeah.
also
kind
I
of
don't want
Billie
to,
Holiday kind of.
yeah, how he finds those notes is kind of incredible. Also, like I love
I
how he
think
plays on the Kenny Wheeler record, you know, with Dave Holland and Bill Frisell,
Angels.
Angel
Is
song,
that?
and that has a similar quality of putting him in such a
Yeah.
context where
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect him to, and then he shines even
Yeah.
more.
Either Angel Song or Balladeering, and then on the other side, Motion. Do you know that record?
Yeah,
Trio record with Alvin and Sonny Dallas.
yeah,
I think those two records would be a fantastic introduction to anybody who didn't know Lee.
yeah.
And then you could say, well, check out these two sides.
Totally.
But that's another thing about critics. They like to just keep talking about the Tristano school, or, you know, and it's just, I get so tired of that with Warren and Lee, and of course Lenny himself,
Yeah.
because they're all three are bigger than that term, you know, and more interesting than that term.
It's something that I've thought about these last days. You know, the quarantine or the pandemic forces us to, you know, we sometimes identify too much about through what we do. You know, I am a pianist. I'm a composer.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know. No, I'm a guy. I'm a father. I have two kids. So you know, I'm forced to be more at home, which is I'm seeing the positive sides of that also, realizing also I can do other things. You know. So I was drawing more with my kids, trying to get better at drawing. And then I thought, okay, how did I get better at playing the piano? I studied or try. I was doing impressions, as we talked about, impressions, trying to get closer to what I like, you know. So I'm trying to. Then I try to just draw an apple, just see an apple and draw it without looking, as you know. And always I would fuck it up. It would just look shitty, and it would look like the 8-year-old me drawing an apple, because I always felt about
Yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
drawing. I like
Yeah.
to draw. Yeah, I like to draw, but I felt like my drawing was always stuck to my 8-year-old abilities or something, you know.
Totally. Yeah.
So I talked to my aunt, who is an artist, and she paints. So she told me, yeah, I read a book about a woman who wanted to teach about painting, and she said she arrived at the thought that everybody draws with the wrong side of the brain, and you're drawing, and you're drawing a ball, and your or an apple or whatever, and your mind, the wrong side of your brain says to you, okay, it's round, so you draw it round, but the way you see it is actually different. It's a
Yeah.
different shape from where you see it. You might see it and it has more of a elliptic kind of shape. So you're drawing the wrong thing because your mind tells you it's round, you know. And
Yeah.
I was thinking the last days, this is so much connected to music, but how? And just when you said it now about those terms, the Tristano school or something, that's the same thing. You know, the mind
Yeah.
tells you, okay,
Yeah.
this is the Tristano
Yeah.
school, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the music through that lens of, yeah, this is how the Tristano school sounds like, and this is how you actually arrive at the shitty cliches that we hate about this
Yeah.
music. You know,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
somebody, okay, this is how Mark Turner plays, and you hear a shitty cliche, which doesn't sound like Mark Turner at all, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Oh, totally.
So
What
yeah,
did
this
she
just
mention what the name of that book was? It's not the Betty Edwards book, was it? Called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by
yeah,
Betty Edwards.
yeah, I think that's
That's the
it.
book?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
you read it.
oh now, yeah, yeah, and we're coming full circle with Mark Johnson because Mark has a song called "Crossing the Corpus Callosum," which is what connects the two. Yeah,
Ah,
cool.
okay.
This school thing goes back so far, that I shouldn't just say critics. I guess that's unfair because I was just reading yesterday about Pierre Schaeffer being pissed off about uh, the French having to deal with the ominous um, influence of the Viennese school, and I'm thinking I would accept that if it was a critic saying it, but a musician. I mean, you wouldn't think Webern or Berger or Schoenberg would be. Um, they just wouldn't be like that as people. And
Mhm.
plus, how many other Viennese can write like that? It's
Yeah,
not. It's just them. It's not.
yeah,
If you're talking about Viennese school, there's a very few people
yeah,
going. Yeah,
yeah. We get
that's
hung
it's
up
just such a strange way.
by those words. I mean, sometimes if my students ask me about, it's like a weird question that you get asked a lot is like, do I have to know about bebop or, you know?
Oh, it's a great question, though. It's such a good question.
I mean, yeah, you can totally then go to that place and say a lot of things concerning that, but I get sometimes hung up by the word bebop, even, you know, because
I say all the time, you don't have to, absolutely don't have to. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, I want to introduce you to my little friend, Charlie Parker.
yeah, right,
Like, and
yeah,
then, and then depending on how you do it, they're cool and they love Charlie Parker. You just bypass bebop,
yeah,
but it doesn't translate to the word game because one time, to my horror, David Wong came up to me on the street and was like, "Street, you don't like bird?" And I was like, "What the fuck,
Oh
David?
shit.
Like, who told you that?" And he's like, "Yeah, some kid who took a lesson with you said you didn't like bird." And I
Oh.
was like, "See, this is the tough side of trying to trick students out of the name game."
Yeah.
It doesn't translate well to gossip, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we are all have. I mean, sometimes we think we might be uh, we might see through this game, but then again with other topics we might be totally attached to certain names or expressions that make us think about a certain thing a certain way, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
constantly, every day. Um,
Even with
oh, I
people, I
don't know
mean,
what I wanted
also
to ask.
like Buster Williams or somebody like that. You know, you sometimes listen to somebody through the lens of what your perception of that guy is.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, you said when you were drawing the apple without looking, were you deliberately trying to do it without looking at the paper?
I I I arrived at that thing, so I had to force myself to not
Because
look because when you look,
yeah, that's a deep technique.
yeah,
That's really hard to do.
it's super, yeah. Also, if you do a portrait of somebody without looking,
Oh, wow.
yeah, some funny shit will pop up.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Can we talk about that phenomenon of hooking up with the drummer?
Oh, geez. You know the tough questions. How do you know all this? How do you know this shit? You're supposed to dream at the piano and not worry about this stuff.
No, no, no,
How do you know
man.
about that fucking
No,
thing?
I don't know about
Ah,
it, so I want to know about. I want to know about it from you because
I
um,
definitely don't know about it. Yeah.
you do know
I
about it.
I
I
get
think.
I don't. I get asked that all the time by bass students, and I feel like it's because they are told that by somebody. I don't know who. I don't know if it's a band director or um I oh God. I wish Billy Hart or somebody were here to field this question or tell me I'm wrong or back me up because I really strongly feel like you don't do that. That's not what happens.
Hmm.
Like any, any great drummer, I'm only playing with them. Like if I don't know they're playing from before, from having played with them or albums or listening to them on gigs, if their playing is new to me and I'm playing as well, the only thing I'm listening for is their relationship with the drums. Like if they love the drums in and and that's all I care about, and that takes up all my attention. I feel like if I would start to try to judge the relationship between us, I would be creating a problem,
Hmm.
kind of an ego problem, kind of, or a control problem or something, or worse, a misjudgment because the brain doesn't work that fast. I don't have that powerful enough a brain, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Incoming, he's placing the hi-hat at 33%. Move to
Yeah,
the right. Like,
yeah,
there's no fucking way.
yeah,
Like, same with trying to hook up every voicing that the pianist,
yeah,
like, I'm there for you, I'm there for you. There's no way. I'm not there for you.
yeah.
It's not going to happen. I'm going to be a big disappointment. Sorry. Oh, sorry about the B flat. You know, so it's best not even to go into that game.
Hmm.
uh, anyway, that's just, I'm sure I'm totally wrong, and that a lot of great bass players will explain how to hook up with a drummer, and I'll learn something. But it's my feeling that that would be presumptuous.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Of
you have
course, it
it.
doesn't mean I'm not ignoring the drummers. So
No.
far from it. Maybe I can say another thing that would make it more clear. I think of maybe in a basic way my bass as a pitched bass drum. another bass drum
Mm.
that just has 2.5 more octaves
Mm-hmm.
for the, or not even that much, 1.5 maybe, maximum 2, depending if there's some timbales involved or something. But so I need to put my bass drum in with their family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Israel and Vernell did. That's
Right.
and I talked to Vernell Fournier about this, and it's not just what we all love about Vernell and Israel being genius musicians
Yeah.
and playing with a genius. It's actually simple physics. Vernell said that Israel was really good at finding the notes that would cut through because he wasn't playing with an amp.
Whoa. Okay.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
So that's another star for Israel because
Mm-hmm.
it's like perfect bass lines,
Yeah.
but it's also
Incredible.
based on an extreme demand.
Oh, that's
Now, of
interesting.
course, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration on Vernell's part, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
beautiful.
like the image. Yeah.
And we still have it today with amplifiers because of the rooms. And sometimes the drummer's not happy with the drums or the way the drums are resonating in the room. So yeah, I have an amplifier and I can turn up or turn up the treble and turn down the bass, but that's still not gonna. I still have to find the right notes in the right register to be with the drums in the right way in this room.
Mm.
The same way I have to find the right note for the piano player or the guitar player, and I might have the right note but be in the wrong octave.
Mm-hmm.
When I was roommates with Kurt, we would mess around with certain voicings and try different bass notes.
Yeah.
And one miracle that occurred was I was playing a D under one of his voicings, and he was like, "Nah," and I'm like, "Nah." I was like, "Wait, let me just try it up an octave," and I played it up an octave, and it was like,
Ah.
and I never would have thought of that,
Mm-hmm.
if we weren't doing that slow, methodical, very stupid exercise.
Doesn't sound
Stupid in the
stupid at
sense
all.
of, well, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. It was very much that, "Ooh, try this.
Yeah.
What if you went up a half step?" Which is fantastic. I love that kind of stuff. I just wouldn't write a book about it, but yeah, or
Mm.
maybe I should.
Yeah. I mean,
How did we get here? Oh, yeah.
we went from hooking up with a drummer to
Oh,
you.
hooking up with the drummer. Such a
Yeah.
good question, which I didn't answer, right? So,
Well, in a way, we
mm,
talked about it. It's not
okay.
about an answer per se. I think it's about I just mention something and what comes up in with your mind. We'll see what
Yeah, it's
happens.
such a huge topic. I mean, in terms of maybe also what people mean by that is the beat, where the beat should be, is a more tricky. And that gets back to that thing about whether you can stay in a zone for someone or not, whether you
Mm.
can stay in the zone that they wish you would be in.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Do you have this kind of feeling sometimes with some people you play with?
That they want me to stay in
That,
a certain
that
modus
well, they
or
like
something.
you and they like your playing, but they have strong ideas about. They
Yeah,
hope that you'll bring out that part of you, or
yeah. And sometimes I like that, and sometimes I don't because
yeah, 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 exactly.
especially it doesn't happen so much anymore because I actually made a lot of effort in saying no to things where I had the feeling that I'm called to do I'm called to do an imitation of the piano player that they like in the band that
Yeah,
they're trying to imitate.
yeah, yeah,
And I
exactly.
might have checked that guy out and like that guy,
Yeah,
but being in a band like this or being even on a gig like this will make me lose the love that I have for that. It's just in tiny
oh yeah,
portions, but sometimes you feel like, yeah, I know exactly what you want from me here, but
yeah,
just feels wrong to go there. Or if I will go there, I will feel very bad afterwards.
Yeah, yeah,
So I made an
yeah,
effort to not do that anymore, so it doesn't happen as often. And also,
yeah,
once I put more energy into my own projects, I think therefore you make a um, once you choose what you do more clearly, that spreads the word a little bit about what you like to do.
yeah,
But then again, I'm sometimes not happy because, I mean, I think we're all humans, but I'm sometimes not happy because then I get sometimes not called for things where I think I would like to play in a certain circumstance, a certain musical environment, but I'm not called for it because I don't show that side of myself, maybe, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but why am I talking now? Oh, you because you asked me,
Yeah,
you
yeah, about
Ben
the
Street
zones.
guy,
The zone thing is so
yeah.
well because that's such a tricky thing about education. Like your students saying, "Do I need to learn bebop?" It's an amazing question. It's an incredible question,
Mm,
I think. Yeah,
mm,
and I feel that too many people who teach have a too quick of an answer to that.
like what? Yes.
Oh, like of course you have to learn
Yeah.
bebop. Yeah, yes.
Mm,
At least admit it's a good question is what I would like to say.
yeah, that's true.
Because that's the only thing that's going to help them study it is if you take it as a good question, you know.
Hmm.
Because you want them to stay in the arts, right? You don't want them to run away. Like a lot of them have been told their whole life, shut up, just do it, just do it and you'll see why later. They've been told that for so long.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's
and they're
about
probably just going to run away. This is another one of those things.
yeah. I just have to take this medicine, and one day it'll make
Yeah,
me yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
like the doctor says. Yeah, and I'm not a studied doctor, but the doctor says you should take this pill, and after 3 weeks you should feel better. You'll see.
Exactly.
But doesn't yeah
Yeah,
that
the
doesn't
art should be
make you
for them.
realize your love towards a certain artist and your personal
Yeah.
relationship to it. Yeah.
Like you don't go to the kid in the sandbox and say, "What are you doing? You're just fucking around. Like you haven't studied Brancusi. You haven't studied what? Make me something in that sand. What the fuck is that supposed to be?
Yeah.
Like you can't.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So
Is there something that might be a little bit off topic now, but because I grew up listening to certain guys, and I didn't really necessarily grow up listening to Barry Harris or Art Tatum or Louis Armstrong or going even back further. So I had to fill in the gaps later on, and I was advised to fill in the gaps early on by older musicians that I got the chance to play with.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I know the feeling of the students, young students asking, do I have to, learn about bebop or something like that? Do I have to go back? So
yeah,
I can relate to that question because I felt in the moments where I was advised, yeah, you should check out some, I would feel, yeah, but I'm kind of checking it out through Herbie because he checked out, blah, blah, blah. So I had
yeah,
to, after a while, I had to admit that I should go back and you know, and this will be a lifelong journey, obviously. But is there somebody, maybe recently, where you feel like um, you discovered about a guy and you just feel like you should have discovered him more early, or uh, a
that
certain
happens all the
record,
time.
like you hear a record and you're like, shit, why haven't I heard this
All the
20 years
time.
ago?
It happens all the time. I almost had a heart attack a couple of months ago when this cello player told me that. How do you pronounce this composer's name? Buxtehude?
Buxtehude? That's a.
Yeah, how do you pronounce?
Oh, I don't know
Is it?
that guy.
Isn't he German?
I mean,
He's the one that
there's a
Bach.
town that's called like this, Buxtehude.
Okay, it's the
So,
one that the organist that Bach walked across Germany to study with when he was
oh, okay.
17 or 18.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a lot of organ music,
Mm.
and this cellist told me, "Oh yeah, we were playing the Buxtehude string trio," and I'm like, "There are string trios from I had
Oh,
no," and I was totally blown away. And why didn't someone tell me when I was? But
yeah,
I'm glad to know you don't know Buxtehude's music. That makes me feel
yeah,
better.
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
will check it out. Yeah.
you'll totally love it. Yeah. Um, and then there's always all these composers who, for whatever reason, decided to do soundtracks instead,
Mm-hmm.
or emigrated to Hollywood from
Yeah,
Eastern Europe or somewhere in Europe, and they're incredible. I mean, it's just
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
I can't even watch the movie. I'm like, where's my sampler? It's
yeah.
just, or if I'd heard that voicing when I was 20 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because it's another way of doing this voice leading that I didn't want to do it because then I would be it's too much Herbie. But then here's this motherfucker doing it in an equally elegant way. That's another solution than Herbie's. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
why didn't I think of that?
yeah.
Like, it's just happening constantly. Like,
Mm.
oh, I don't want to disrespect Herbie
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
Keith. And then, but there's always a thousand. If you think in voice leading ways, there's always, and I think Barry's such a good example of that. Um, because I never listened to Barry when I was younger because I was being, I guess, kind of an idiot and thinking I only have a limited amount of time. I'm going to listen to Bud and Bird, and I did that with Sonny Stitt too a lot. And now that I don't know, have more time or just whatever I say is going to sound terrible. It's not
Mm.
like I'm done with Bud and Bird. Like
Yeah,
now
yeah,
that I've
yeah.
have all their records memorized. It's not that. It's just, I guess, because getting to see Barry live and is so different than Bud anyway, like everybody is. Um, and just the way he talks about Bud and Bird is so beautiful,
Yeah.
and the way that you can think of a scale, but not be shut down by vertical traps. You can still maintain your horizontal approach,
Mm.
even still with a scale. So there is no more fight between scale and chord or horizontal and vertical.
Mm.
They are just two ways of saying the same thing. And I'm not very smart, so I am apt to have those kind of fights. Like, fuck the voicing, don't talk to me about chord scales. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
It just has to be horizontal voice leading and shut the fuck up,
Mm.
which is true for me. But
Mm.
at the same time, there's no reason to be scared of voicings or vertical towers because they're gorgeous
Mm.
and it's the piano and a lot of the piano, and you as long as you know that the voice leading is the real game and that is the real deal, you can make all those towers all you want. It's not going to be a problem.
Mm.
Am I making any sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Mm.
And I think Barry's really good at showing ways that scales can be very wonderful and magical and musical and explorative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never sound like scales with him. Never
Yeah.
sounds like meh or meh. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to one of his classes?
No, because I was also probably stupidly thinking that it was a little bit like the Masabumi thing. Like, unless I'm going to be all in, I'd rather stay away from the class because I want to keep liking it from a little bit of a distance. I
Yeah.
don't want to get pissed off. I don't want to get pissed off when Barry says something negative about Miles, or I'm such a baby about certain people. If anybody disses Miles, I'm like, oh fuck, like I'll run and
Yeah.
run to the ocean or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, And the people I play with are never going to say anything negative about Miles. I guess there's some connection there, you
Yeah.
know. I always end up gravitating towards the people who worship Miles somehow. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Same here.
yeah,
Same here.
it's interesting.
Mm.
Meanwhile, I'm sure every negative thing Barry says about Miles is totally true. Of course, I'm sure. But I just can't handle it.
Yeah. I heard an incredible, video of him totally putting down Bill Evans,
Oh,
like
that I can
to
handle
the
because I've
to
heard it.
the
I've
bone.
heard it so much since I was a kid,
Hmm.
especially from pianists.
Putting Bill Evans down?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oof. So I can take it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It still hurts a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm a little more used to it.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, if I start thinking about it, I get really upset because it's like also the thing with Keith, like, what does somebody have to do? You know, is it because Bill didn't cook dinner for you or didn't send you a letter saying he loved your record so much and you're the better pianist? I mean, I don't know what Keith or Bill or Miles had to do more than they already gave us. That's like, my
Mm.
God.
Yeah.
For people who gave us that much, it's like,
Yeah.
it was amazing that you asked Mark about that record, Affinity. I never hear people talk about that record, and that's
Mm.
one of my desert island records
Oh
for
man.
sure.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Oof, wow.
Even they play what is it? Blue and green, you know,
Yeah,
and to attempt to play that. I mean, obviously Bill Evans is allowed to attempt to play this because he was pretty much involved with most of it, I guess. But
I think he wrote the whole tune. Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
thought
I think Bill gave him that. I mean, Miles gave him that first voicing. He said with the E on top.
yeah, but then
So can you do something with this?
yeah,
That's the story that I heard Bill say. Did you hear that? The
yeah,
one fucking voicing, the E on top. Yeah,
but
can you do something with this?
did you hear the intro of Bill Evans
The
playing?
outtakes?
No, the intro of Bill Evans playing Alone Together with Chet Baker in, I think, 58 or 59.
Yeah.
That's pretty much Blue and Green
Oh,
to me,
oh, okay, there you go. So it might not have even, maybe Bill was being nice by saying there was a voicing.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I mean, I definitely don't care. I'm
Yeah.
not, because I don't care if Miles never wrote any composition.
Yeah.
But, there was something I was going to say. Oh, yeah, Blue and Green. What about Days of Wine and Roses?
Oh, yeah. And Body and
I
Soul.
mean, I love that. I love that tune anyway. Yeah, and Body and Soul. But just the fact that they're such old chestnuts and they're doing them, and the Phil Markowitz tune, like,
Snow Peas.
wow, yeah, it's an insane set list for that
Yes.
record.
Yes.
Wow, Jesus's Last Ballad. Who?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and also, my God, maybe my favorite track in a way, the Paul Simon tune.
I Do It For Your Love. Oh my God. Yeah.
Ooh,
Incredible. The
wow.
reharmonization is so out there. What he does with it,
Mm.
that's sometimes nice. I mean, we keep talking about teaching, but sometimes the cheap way out is telling your student what to do, and then they come with, I did this with that because I always, you know, I always wanted to know about the reharmonization of I Do It For Your Love, and I think I was on vacation, so I didn't have a piano. I didn't, I was playing with the kids. Didn't really deal with music, but somehow I thought of that tune. And, oh shit! I always wanted to. Oh, I know what I do. Called one of my students right from out of the vacation and said,
Oh, wow.
in a couple of weeks, I want you to, because I want you to transcribe Paul Simon's recording of I Do It For Your Love. I want you to transcribe Bill Evans' version and Herbie's
Wow.
version because they all did it and they all did it
Oh, Herbie
differently.
did it on what,
Yeah,
on the
I mean,
newsstand?
on
No.
possibilities.
Oh
kind of a
shit! I
pop.
haven't heard that. I gotta check
Yeah,
that
I
out.
mean, there's some gems on that record, but not all of it is my favorite Herbie stuff. But
Oh, you can say stuff like that on this
I
podcast or
just
whatever you
did.
call it. I've been trying to hold back.
No, I mean, you can take it wherever you
I'm just
want.
playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
uh, Herbie also did it. So my student came with the comparison of those three things, and
nice.
that was a cheap way out of my on my part. But still, it was an incredible lesson for me because I learned so much, of him
Yeah.
having to show it to me. And yeah, what Bill
That Paul
does,
Simon version is killing. Yeah.
yeah, that's killing on its own right, So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's already it's hard to predict where it's going harmonically, on that
Oh
already.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then, but what Bill did with it,
Yeah.
also, and how it makes sense on an harmonical level,
Yeah.
addressing all the functions of the chords, but going somewhere
Yeah.
totally different, is incredible. Yeah,
Yeah. For sure.
yeah, it's an incredible record, and also the sound. I love the sound, and I think it was also. Didn't Mark say? I don't remember from the interview, but didn't he say it was recorded in the same studio as kind
30th
of?
Street. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is amazing.
yeah.
That maybe the similar piano. Um, uh, but I think, I mean, I knew what you meant about Bill's sound on Affinity, but I need to go back and check my math on this a little bit. But I feel like it's not just Affinity for Bill. I feel like the whole last 3 years, or especially maybe a year and a half, his sound changed a lot and became, like, in a way, it was a return to the 50s, but with some other world weary kind of Duraflé and Fauré kind of, I don't know, there was a kind of, I'm not being sentimental. I thought this when I was a kid too, at the time, because that record came out when I was like 13 or something. And I remember just feeling like there was that Requiem feeling, like somebody who's lived more of life and is thinking of, there's so much more air in Bill's sound. I mean, his sound was never bad, but it was,
No.
his sound on Young and Foolish, on the record with Sam Jones and Philly Joe, Everybody Digs Bill Evans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that has intimations of, when I listen to that, the ballads on that record, and then Affinity and some of the other stuff at the end of his life, even the live bootlegs, he's got this thing that's kind of closer to Horowitz or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or Michelangelo, So, yeah.
Oh, he checked that guy out. He liked that piano
It
player.
sounds like
Yeah.
it. Doesn't he sound like Michelangelo sometimes? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
Have you got that video of Chili Badacci and Michelangelo
Oh.
playing Ravel? Oh.
Yes.
You see the part where somebody coughs and Chili Badacci gets super pissed?
It just killed
during
the
the
music.
second movement, during the slow movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the. I mean, that's a masterwork, and also, I mean, their recording of it, and when I found out that Miles and Bill were listening to that recording before they did Kind of
I didn't
Blue,
know that. Okay. Oh,
and
there you
also,
go. Yeah.
it has one side. Let me see where it is. One second. So there you go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So one
so
side.
that was in the 50s?
Yeah. So let me see when
That's
it was.
Chili Badacci's conducting that?
Yeah, but the video you're talking about is not from that year. That's I think that's beginning of the
Right, that's
70s. So, but the record is from 58.
Man, Chili Badacci must have been pretty young.
Yeah. So also Rachmaninoff's Fourth Piano Concerto is on that.
Wow. Okay, I gotta
And
get that
there are,
jam.
so, I mean, the first couple of notes from the piano sounds like Bill, you know?
Yeah, nice. Okay, I gotta check in. He's a good mimic. Wow.
Yeah.
Bill is another person we could talk about all day. That would be
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Much to a few of my friends' horror, but yeah.
As much as I would like to talk to you about Bill Evans, I want to go back to the topic. I want to
Yeah,
go
I
back to
figured.
the. No, I want to go back to the topic of drummers and you with
Yeah, sure,
drummers.
of course. Yeah.
Um, because I just want to know, I mean, if you compare like the first moment you play with Bill Stewart the first time and the first time
Mm.
you play with Billy Hart or with Tutti Heath, I mean, what happens in the first moment when you play with somebody like that? Because you have to feel it out in a way.
Um,
And it's I'm sure it's different with everybody. I mean, I know it myself from playing with other people, but that bass and drums relationship is such a special one. Yeah.
yeah, I got you're saying the first time I played with Bill Stewart versus the first time I played with
Could be
Billy or Tootie
anybody,
or someone
but you like
of that
that older generation,
older
and
generation, yeah,
you know, as
versus a
opposed,
peer of
yeah.
like, yeah. Um, that's a really good question. Well, for sure, I think I was more nervous to play with Bill Stewart the first time than I was um, Billy Hart, or because I guess I thought I don't know, when I play with people that are close to my age but far ahead of me musically, I feel like the dumb shit that takes me forever to figure out, they're going to hear so clearly in a way that the masters might be more forgiving. Or this might be just another gig with whoever the fuck is on bass, Joe Schmo on bass over here. I'm getting paid what I asked for. I'll get through it. I've done it before. I don't know. There
Yeah.
might be a little bit more of that vibe. Whereas somebody like Bill, who is so fierce and so smart and so great at such a young age, of course I envied that at that age. The first time I heard him, I was just like, what the fuck? How did he figure out
Mm-hmm.
the way? That's the
Uh-huh.
shit. How the fuck do you do that? I'm still busy having boxing matches in my head with Eddie Gomez and Wilbur Ware and Wellman Broad and Slam Stewart and Pops Foster. And Bill's just like straight to the point, killing, let alone the cymbal choices and the drum tunings and the minutia of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was more nerve wracking psychologically, I think. Not that I didn't give a fuck playing with
Of
Billy Hart.
course. Yeah.
Of course, I was terrified. The first time I played with Tootie was a little different because, um, of course, I was in terror of Tootie as well, but I was in greater terror of Percy, and I just didn't want anything to do with any of the Heaths. I wanted to never see them. And that was confirmed by 2 times meeting Percy and having a really hard time. So I was like, man, fuck me and the Heaths. Not fuck the Heaths, but
Yeah.
fuck me and them. That doesn't need to happen. I'm good at home.
Mm.
At home with the Heaths is perfect for me. Uh, so there I am on the bandstand, thanks to Ethan with Tootie, and I'm just staring at the ground like, fuck, I'm so sorry, Tootie. I'm so sorry. I'm not Percy. I'm not even close. And I probably tried more than Richard Davis, more than any Percy lover. I never met a bigger Percy lover than me or someone who studied him. I'm sure there are. I just didn't meet them. So that made it even worse because I'm like, wow, after all that study, this is the sad shit that I'm actually doing with his brother. So that was a pretty horrible. And it was recorded. Beautiful. But as it goes with art, it doesn't sound that bad when I listen to it now.
No, it doesn't.
So that's really weird how
Mm-hmm.
that happens. Really, really weird. I don't know what the takeaway is from that. That's what's tough trying to teach.
Mm.
Kid, you got to be terrified or you won't. I mean, what is the takeaway from some kind of story like? It's crazy.
Doesn't have to be a takeaway on first sight, or I mean, just the story is enough sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, maybe so. Hopefully. But it would be nice to learn something once in a while, I guess. But but that's what the students do for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
let them do it. Your story about the three versions of that tune is great. It's like a story I heard about Rand Blake one time. Someone asked him how his students were this year, and he said, I don't feel I'm learning as much from them as some students in the past. It's
Yeah,
pretty great.
I can relate to that. Sometimes you
Yeah,
feel like, shit, I think I'm learning more than they are. You
yeah,
know, not
yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
give them assignments that they do for me or something. No, but I mean, every lesson I have a revelation of some sort. Like, shit, this is how it works. Or, oh, you can do this as well. Or
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because sometimes it
It's
takes somebody
incredible.
else to tickle you in some way for you to be like, yeah, how about we try this? Because I don't have a method when I'm teaching. Totally
Yeah,
not. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
of course, the basic method of study the masters, or if you don't have something in your playing, go where somebody else has that quality. That's the
exactly.
basic method, but apart from that, my time is bad, or uh, I don't know enough
Yeah,
voicings. I don't have a
yeah,
method or
exactly.
something. Okay, here's what you do, and you do it 3 times a day, and you'll feel better after a
Yeah,
week.
exactly.
I don't have that, so I have to make up stuff as I go along when I teach. And
Yeah,
then this is when I find out stuff for myself also.
that's the
So
shit. Wow. That's like I used to go take lessons with Roman Diaz,
hmm
and he would say in Spanish at the beginning of the lesson, "What are we doing?" Which
yeah,
was, but with this look, like, why are we even doing this, or why are we here? Like, it is, which is just the perfect opening
yeah.
question. Why did you come to my house? Yeah, it's great.
Um, Maybe connected to the bass drums thing. I'm curious about your thoughts on phrasing, feel, because when I think about your playing, talk about your playing with Billy Hart, maybe um, there's things you have a very clear way of playing, super clear. But then again, in all its clarity, you leave room, maybe deliberate, maybe not, for me, the listener, to interpret the stuff. I can sometimes interpret stuff that you play as being something that's super exciting, of course, but super precise on a rhythmical level. But then again, if I listen to the same note again, I can also hear it as something that's loose and malleable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that works so well with somebody like Billy, you
Oh
know.
man, totally.
And I don't know, maybe you can tell me your thoughts on this.
Well, I got that confirmed one time in the early days of playing with Billy that I was trying to figure out how best to play with him, of course. And of course I still am, but I was really in the weeds in the beginning. And at one point we were playing a very slow song and he was making very big circles, which I felt very comfortable with. And I was straying into the edges of those circles also and feeling great. And then a voice came saying, "What the fuck are you doing? He needs probably the center of the circle so that he can, you don't deserve to be out there in the party with him. You should be in the center of the wheel." So I went to the center of the wheel. Yeah, boy, I learned my lesson tonight. I'm doing such a great job for Billy. He's going to love this. He turned around and gave me this look that I will never, ever forget. I've seen my baby daughter give me that look sometimes. And it's a amazingly complex, very clear, but very multi-leveled look. Like, how could you? How dare you? What are you doing? What's your point? I thought we were friends. You know, there's so many levels to that look. And I fucking never did that again. I never tried to be smart and correct and professional again. And I think it's worked out better. But the ethos was correct to try to give up the space to someone else, to not try to be like, yeah, can I have your ice cream cone too?
Yeah.
Looks like you're really enjoying that. Like you can't do that, you know. So there is something to, well, Billy told me that he likes to call it taking turns, because he said Jimmy Garrison told him that. Because Billy said it took him a while to ask Jimmy, but he finally said, how did you do it? How did you do it with Alvin? And Jimmy said, we took turns. And that's just beautiful, you know, and you have to, because I was also guilty of being too straight many times with Billy. Like, oh, the magic is over there, everybody. Hey, everybody, that's where the show is. And I thought I was being so humble and so good boy. But that's a horrible thing to do to somebody, to force them to carry the whole show, do all the magic. And once I realized, and he had been very subtly, as you know, Billy, trying to get me to play more without saying that for years. And finally, when I started playing more, it was still hard. I was thinking, man, this is not your place. It's time for everyone to totally listen to Billy, and everyone else is a frame or a janitor or a lighting specialist or something. But I don't know. That's another thing I learned from Buster. Just like, Buster's incredibly aggressive, incredibly charming, incredibly infectious, super powerful, growling shit doesn't detract from Mary Lou, who's very much more like John Lewis, or she's not Rachmaninoff or Art Tatum or anything. And that kind of monster bass is not detracting from her at all. So it's amazing. If anything, quite the opposite.
Yeah. And that creates super exciting tension. And also then directs the attention, of course, to the whole thing as one, but also like, okay, what's she gonna do with that? You know?
Yeah. It's beautiful. And she sounds so comfortable.
Oh yeah.
She really sounds like she's in her space to dream, like she's at home alone. It's incredible, with him in particular. And also her with Ronnie Boykins can get that feeling too. There's just a video with Stan Getz. I don't know if you've seen that. They're playing Little Girl Blue or something like that. I think it's outdoors in California. It's on YouTube.
Stan Getz.
That's Sun Ra's bass player.
And that's
Ronnie Boykins.
in the 80s or something.
It's like in the late 70s, I think. Maybe in Napa Valley or something.
It might be that I've seen it, but
it's beautiful.
I have to look at it again, I guess. I read that you studied with Henry Threadgill, or studied his music, or worked with him, or where did you get this?
I only worked with him, was it just once?
On David's
because
record?
he came down with David, yeah. And we were playing at the Vanguard with Roman and Andrew Cyril, and Henry came and played a set with us of Henry's music. So we rehearsed for that.
What was that
but
like?
I've mainly known Henry from the East Village, he spends a lot of time out, he used to anyway, at this one cafe or out in front of his house. So, and he was always open to talking. So he's the kind of person you could go up and actually tell the truth to. You know, if he said, how's it going? You could actually tell him. And then there would be a amazing discussion. You wouldn't
Mm.
have to say it's going good or can I ask you something? You could just jump into it. And he always hooked me up with great advice.
Like
And
what?
I would test him sometimes because I would give him really hard stuff. I wouldn't hold back as a challenge, kind of, because he's so brilliant and
Mm.
he always delivered, you know,
Mm.
just amazing. He's really something. But I didn't study with him. I probably should have, but
What was it like to
I can't.
rehearse with him or to play with him?
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, it was hard for me to. I wasn't drawn naturally to his notation system, maybe the way David was. I guess I never really asked David about this, but um, I loved that he had another notation system. I think that's great. I think it would be amazing if every composer had their own
Mm-hmm.
strong opinions about notation. But I don't know. It's hard for me because a lot of these geniuses, it's like Paul Bley, Henry, Ornette. There's a lot of people, not a lot. There's a few of those people that I just kind of a little bit stayed away from because I felt like for someone like me who's a much slower learner or not as gifted to be around them, there's going to be a fair amount of it's going to be a fair amount of weight on their ankles or a drag. So unless I'm fully all in to that, then it's best to just do it at home or something.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's somebody that I could hear more of the whole package in a natural way. Like, and there's very few musicians who I have that with. Like, if Jimmy Garrison were alive today, I would be sitting on his doorstep doing the Sonny Rollins to Coleman Hawkins thing. I would
Yeah.
have no problem having that confidence of being like, no, I'm coming in there. It might not be today, but
Mm.
one of these days I'm coming in. I'll do the dishes. I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Because everything he plays, I got to have it. I got to know. And a lot with Ornette or Henry or Paul Bley, I equally love their music and what they do. But at the same time, there's a lot that I know is not me or something. And this is not a judgment.
Yeah.
It's just an intuition of that's them, and I love it.
Yeah.
Like Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
There's so much Stevie that's not me in a beautiful, incredible way.
Yeah.
But Grant Green, Jimmy Garrison, Connie Kay, there's a few players where I'm just like Mary Lou, that I'm just like, give me all. I
Yeah.
have to have all that.
Yeah.
Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
I have to have Duke's whole band. I got to have every note. I got to have it. And I deserve it. I got to have it.
Mm.
I don't feel bad, but I don't know. It's a really hard thing to talk about, but it's,
How do you study this music?
oh, just transcribing and, I make it easier by doing people who I have no business doing first. Like, I certainly have no business with Strayhorn and Ellington. Fine. So I'll go to Bach and Mozart and Schubert for a while. Then I'll come back, and it'll be easier because Strayhorn and Ellington are so much more in my heart somehow. And it doesn't mean I like them more. It's just the feeling of like I know this somehow. I already know it. Now let's just make it official and get it into the thing, get it moving.
So
It's
you
the
want to
same thing
know
I have.
about sorry for interrupting, but you want to know about
No,
Duke
no.
Ellington and Stuart Strahan, but you don't go there. You go for Schubert and then you come back.
Well,
Can you explain?
yeah, I know it's sounding weird. Of course I want to know everything. Like
Sure.
I'd love to be able to play Stevie's entire catalog
Sure.
on all the instruments, and I would love to have all of Bach right here. Of course I would. Um, so it's not a value judgment. It all comes from the listening experience. I mean, the first time I was totally, I come from a big family and we all listened together. But the first time I listened to Duke by myself in a car, away from everybody, on cassette, I remember the road, the night, the
Yeah.
sky, everything. And I remember the feeling like I can just pull over here. I'm good. I don't need to hear any more records.
Mm.
I don't need to have some more experiences. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to find true love and have a family. I'm
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
I might live under that tree over there. It's a certain kind of feeling that doesn't happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And something similar always happens with Duke and Stray and with Jimmy Garrison and with Grant Green. I can use it like yoga or like herbs, or if I'm fucked up or feel bad or something's fucked up. And I test it all the time. I was super depressed about this pandemic the other day and didn't want to do anything and was feeling terrible about myself that I felt that way and that I couldn't be proactive. And it went on for some number of days. And then I was just like, oh, I, I'm going to put the challenge on Jimmy. I'm not going to take this all myself. So I just copied everything he did on that track Iris with Alice and John and Rashid.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even 12 minutes and I was good.
Okay.
I was ready for anything,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
And it's beautiful that your emotional experiences in a passive way can carry on and become medicine. They can be actually used
Yeah.
in a literal active way. They're not just like, man, that's some bad shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
It's powerful.
yeah, super powerful.
Okay, but we were talking about studying, um, and going back and forth from the stuff that you like and that you would like to check out, right? So you're
Yeah,
transcribing. Um, can you tell me what your process is transcribing? Can you break it down?
yeah. Well, I definitely agree with Keith that you should study the supermasters. It's the fastest, or it's the most efficient use of your time. So I'll definitely study Bach and Bird and Louis Armstrong and um, as much as I can. But a huge part of my heart just wants to study Mussorgsky and Schnittke and Duke and Grant Green and Connie Kay.
Mm.
Those are the people that just,
Yeah.
and so I don't know, I make myself go for the other ones, which I love too, very, very, very much, and which very much touch me. But I don't know, somehow it's a different feeling. Bach brings out another part of my brain, which maybe keeps me a little more sane or a little more able to be in a zone with the real world, the real
Mm-hmm.
tough world. Bach would help me drive by Costco and McDonald's and Burger King without getting super depressed. So I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something that it activates another part of my brain,
Mm.
and definitely helps me play with a tenor player better, or
Yeah.
it helps me hear in two places,
Yeah.
hear my line and their line,
Yeah.
um, more than I'm sure Prokofiev could do that for me too. But the place I go to when I'm dealing with Prokofiev is so weird.
Mm.
It's almost like underground or in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
It's Hobbit house or something.
Special
So it
guy.
doesn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Bach, you're playing at the piano or also at the bass?
No, so far I just do it either on paper or at the bass or the guitar
On
with the
paper,
program.
transcribing the music?
Yeah, just thinking part by part.
Mm.
So, so obviously I'll start with the solo pieces because it's
Yeah.
just one line.
Sure, yeah.
But if it's a polyphonic piece, then I'll do line by line. Yeah, either on paper or with the guitar or bass. But somehow the best is, and I never do it. I've only done it a few times, and I tell students to do it. I should do it more. The best is with some crappy keyboard controller and GarageBand, because
Okay.
it really forces you to not take yourself so seriously. It sounds terrible
Mm-hmm.
in a great way, and it emphasizes the message that it's not about you or your version or some hip exercise you're doing. It's about the music,
Mm-hmm.
because it still sounds fucking great when you
Yeah.
play back that three voice thing or whatever with GarageBand internal instruments.
Mm.
Did you hear Adam Benjamin's GarageBand record?
No?
Yeah, I don't know if it's from 10 years ago. It's called It's a Standard World. And he does real book standards. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's like 15 or 20 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the task was that he could only use GarageBand's internal instruments. And
Wow.
for me, it's a pretty great record. And it's also, uh, there's multiple points to be gleaned from that. But I love doing that with Bach and other composers, because it cements the thing that, and for someone like me who's so obsessed with sound and with strings and with
Yeah.
instruments and microphones, it even more cuts it, just like,
You have a
fine,
little
Ben,
bit
you're
more.
obsessed with all that stuff, but
Yeah.
you don't have to be that obsessed, because
Mm-hmm.
shit sounds pretty good on the GarageBand trombone.
Yeah.
But
How about putting it on a drum sample?
I haven't done that yet, but Adam did it. Adam does it beautifully, like fantastic drum programming, and you'll hear the record.
Okay, I'll check it
Yeah.
out. Well, it puts more. I mean, doing it that way with Bach on various instruments and deleting the sound aspect of it, it puts so much more weight, or it shows how great and important the content is, and how, on the other side, how sometimes we're blinded by sound,
Yeah.
or um, the way somebody's playing, and we might think, wow, that's hip, and then you see what the actual content is, and you're like, it doesn't make any sense, or you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And in the other direction, with Bach especially, the MIDI instruments show that beautiful thing that it sounds like he was feeling, that how much came to him and how much he's passing through, not just putting all his stamp on it, but how much he's passing on again about how amazing it is 5-1, 1-5,
Mm-hmm.
1-5 this way, 5-1 this way.
Mm.
And that a lot of it is not his shit. He's like just passing it on.
Mm.
Just like in other great classical traditions, like Indian classical, we're responding to a lot of people, which is so fantastic.
Yeah.
And with Bach, we're definitely responding to a lot of people.
Mm.
I think
Mm.
he's. It sounds like, and they say that he used a lot of sources.
Right.
Yeah. In so many ways.
So when you transcribe a piece like that, then what happens after that, after you've put it on paper or onto the guitar or GarageBand?
Well, nothing formally happens. I certainly will spare the listening public any
Presentation
version
of
I
it.
might
Yeah.
do of them. I'm
Yeah.
not going to inflict
Yeah.
the world with that, but it does help me play with people for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
And how is the process then different if you take apart a Billy Strayhorn song or a Monk
Well,
song?
that is a little bit more literal, because they'll get me out of a jam on the bandstand in a literal way. I haven't been able to do that with Bach yet, or maybe we'll never do it. I could do it with David Varillas or Danilo Perez or somebody, but I can't do it with everybody. There's not a lot of people who I play with anyway that seem as fascinated with tetrachords as like some of those people I mentioned, some others. But that's another story. But the Strayhorn Ellington, I can I can get out of jams at a jam session. I can just be like, wow, I don't want to be here. Why did I say I would play? This is terrible. Oh, I'll play Harry Carney's part. And then it's beautiful. And the jam session transforms and I get awarded the genius grant of the jam. And you sound so amazing. I'm like, oh, let's have a beer. I'm only playing Harry Carney's part. Oh, you're so humble. No, that's what I'm doing. That's what no, I love the bass notes that you're choosing. And it really brought the band together.
Mm.
So then I become like a little hero of a kind of a dismal situation, which is not what I'm trying to be, but it's good there can be some joie de vivre at the situation. It's like
Okay.
it's a literal one-to-one, plug-in.
So you're trying to learn the various parts of the performance of that particular
Well, I'm doing it
piece.
for myself
Yeah.
just because I can't avoid it. The
Yeah.
same with Prokofiev and Connie Kay. But I'm just saying it's interesting that it does have once in a while some practical, amazing benefits, even though that's not why I'm doing it at
Yeah.
home.
Mm-hmm.
I study Connie Kay because I have to, because it's like seeing Joey Barron doing card tricks or something. You're just like, can you do that again? Like 800 times slower, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about your favorite Connie Kay record.
Oh, wow. There's so many, but the first one that jumps to mind is that Paul Desmond, Pure Desmond, with Ed Bickert on guitar and Ron Carter.
Oh.
I think it's from the late 60s, maybe on CTI. I'm not sure. Pure Desmond, it's called.
Pure Desmond. Okay.
And
I'll check it out.
you'll love that guitar player too.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Schofield hit me to those records with
Sko
Jim.
knows that guitar player.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. With Jim Hall.
Oh, with Desmond?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Jim Hall is the one that recommended this guitar player for
Oh,
Paul.
I see. Wow. With Connie Kay, I somehow always have to think about Bags and Train.
Oh, yeah. And around the same time, all the early Ray Charles on Atlantic, a lot of it's
Oh.
Connie Kay.
Wow. Okay.
People tell me, because the liner notes weren't too good back then for.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's so much great Connie Kay. Whoa. There's a Coleman Hawkins, Roy Eldridge at the Opera House with John Lewis, and Connie, and Percy. Some epic John Lewis intros on those. Epic. They're not 20 minutes long, but
yeah,
but they sound like it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In another interview of yours, I read you told about Mark Johnson, and we talked about Mark already a little bit, but Mark Johnson mentioning having a healthy ego in music.
I said that in an interview?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I wonder why I said that, because I always that phrase when he said that really stuck in my mind, because I think I understood how he meant it for him, but I never knew if that would be valuable for me or not.
And
I don't know, what did I say in that interview?
Yeah, the topic in the interview ended there.
Oh.
So, which is, in a way, in a nutshell, why I do these interviews, because a lot of interviews end in the moment where, questions,
now we're getting good.
Answers end somewhere where I'm like, now you're gonna change the subject, and I'm sure I might do the same for others. Somebody would like, can you please talk more about Connie Kay in this moment, or something, But this was a moment where I was like, okay, I want to know more about this.
About the ego thing?
Yeah.
With Mark's comment, or in general?
And how
it got brought up again by Nick Payton a week or two ago on Instagram. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if Nick started it or somebody else. I don't remember, but Nick was talking about that having a healthy ego can be good for an artist, and people shouldn't denigrate the ego so much or something. I'm probably encapsulating it very badly, but if you didn't see it, maybe I can find it and send it. And again, I had a similar feeling, like I feel like I know what Nick's talking about and why this makes sense to him. I'm not sure yet if I feel this way for me, but I might. I don't know. I feel like I know so little, and this is also connected to studying Bach along with or versus studying Duke Ellington. I guess I don't feel like I know very much about the ego in a practical way. I don't know its range. And I've always been maybe a little afraid of it. Like, I don't want to look under that rock, or, I know what's in the basement of this house. I don't need to go down there without the light on. I already know what's there. I'm not scared.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that. And it gets even more scary when I talk to Mark Turner, who I think knows a lot more about the ego than I do, from being a more patient studier of the literature and with teachers. But I remember asking him a specific question. There was a Lama who was teaching about the ego, and he was saying something about, oh, your ego wants this, your ego wants that, your ego wants the cup of coffee. And I was like, it was Lama Yeshe who was talking about this. And I was just like, okay, I thought I was with you, but I'm not with you anymore. I don't get the ego with the cup of coffee. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So of course, I went to Mark and said, Yeshe said this. What was he just kidding, or what has the cup of coffee got to do with ego? And then, of course, Mark gave me a long, drawn out, beautiful answer and it all made perfect sense. And so, of course, I walked away like, yeah, you definitely don't know what's in the basement. You don't know much about the ego. You don't.
Tell me what he
said. Just as I thought. Well, he said that Yeshe and others' definition of the ego is much broader than what we usually think. It's part of the awareness. It's like what you said with drawing. The ego kind of gets in the way drawing that apple, because you want it to be fucking killing, or you not only want it to look like an apple and be realistic, but you want it to be completely original and your vibe. And it's also and that apple's got a vibe.
Yeah.
Not only you want it all.
Yeah.
That's ego, and then as we usually know it. But then the fucking coffee thing is very much connected to the ego. Let's say in the morning, like, as if you know that you can't do shit until you have some coffee. That's what you're saying. But maybe you just want that fucking coffee. You want your treat right away.
Yeah.
You're not waiting for dessert. You're gonna have your drugs right away.
Yeah.
Which is, you don't know that that's what's best even for your own body. But then you're walking around talking about Trump and everything else all day, like you know how everything works and you got it all figured out. Yeah, because you're doing that to yourself right away, first thing in the morning. Like, Mark didn't say all that. I'm paraphrasing to the end of the earth. Mark said none of this, but that's what I took from it. Mark said it in a much more beautiful way. I just don't remember the literal words.
How did we get to the cup of coffee? From the ego. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I never would have connected ego and coffee, obviously, like I said.
No, me neither. Yeah.
And that's another thing with studying Bach. Like, I would be the type of person who would be much more into the idea that I have no business studying Bach for many, many, many reasons. But that's similar to the idea, like, I can't do anything in the morning until I have some coffee. These are just phrases that you somehow have in your head. Who the fuck knows why?
Yeah.
So now transcribing Bach is very much like taking private lessons with Bach, or living in his house in doing chores in exchange for watching him practice or
Yeah.
watching him write or something. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because yeah, when you transcribe, you're like in it from note to
yeah,
note, and then you
exactly.
see how this note
Yeah,
kind of changed the trajectory for that note, and because
exactly.
this note is coming from there, and this note in relation to, yeah, totally.
Exactly. And then you try to challenge it, like, because you have to do a variation on it at some point, otherwise you don't really know it. So it's fun to challenge. Hey man, are you sure you didn't miss a G natural over there? Would have been maybe a little bit better, huh?
Yeah.
And if you try to challenge the master, it's amazing beat down for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have a counterpoint teacher, and the assignments would often be Bach chorales, just take the top line, which apparently he didn't write, like it was a Lutheran melody,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then we harmonize it ourselves. And then we would go to the class and
Wait, so you take the top line and then you write the
yeah,
other three.
take the soprano of the Bach
Yeah.
chorale, which I guess most of the time, or maybe all the time, was a Lutheran
Yeah.
melody, not something that Bach wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And then the students harmonize the chorale, not looking at Bach.
Yeah.
And then we go to the teacher, and then the teacher, together with us, correct our homework. So now we have three versions: the original student version,
Yeah.
the corrected version, and the Bach version.
Yeah.
And our teacher would always laugh about, he told us beforehand how it was going to go, and it went that way every time.
Like
Like
what?
Bach won every time, of course.
Yeah.
But but still, it's important to have the feeling, and maybe this is what Nicholas might mean or Mark Johnson might mean. It's important to have the feeling that you should challenge it or try to beat it, because otherwise you can't really know what's happening.
Mm.
Or I can't do a variation of anything I take from Ornette
Mm-hmm.
unless I really understand something in my own way from him. And there's no sense to transcribe anything from Ornette if I can't do a variation,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's just going to be this artificial limb of Ornette sticking out of my language, and that's
Yep.
pretty weird.
Yeah.
And someone like Sullivan Fortner could get away with that. I cannot get away with that.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think you
Sullivan
can?
can Sullivan can quote like a TV theme song in the midst of an improvisation that would, let's say he's got you in his improvisation, you're almost crying, and then he does some game show theme. It's still fine.
Yeah.
Like he's a very different musician than me. It works with him. I don't think I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I want to, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's different people are different. I'm sure Bach could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he did do that.
Mm. A lot of great TV shows back in the day.
Oh yeah. Or whatever it was. Yeah.
For how long have you been doing this Bach transcription thing?
I think since the first time I heard some people play Bach in a way that I thought there was room for me. Because before, as a kid and in my early 20s, I just thought, okay, Bach is another person on the mountain that I will bow to. I won't get involved, but just as a listener. But then when I heard Heifetz and Edwin Fischer,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay,
Yep.
I have to be involved somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Because I needed
What did
I
you?
needed a lot of things from Heifetz that he was doing. I knew I needed those things on the bass. I mean, I don't have them.
Yeah.
I would never be able to play like Heifetz on the bass. I'm just talking about very specific little things of vibrato and certain phrasing things and very minutiae, like details.
What about Edwin Fischer?
Ugh, that sent me on the whole Abbey Road quest of sonics and types of piano sound and
Mm-hmm.
the fulfillment of Schnabel in my mind. This is nothing against Schnabel,
Yep.
but yeah, just, oh my God, I could talk about Edwin Fischer forever. It's unbelievable. I left him out, but he's in there with Grant Green
Yeah.
and Connie Kay for me. Yeah, just got to get to work. Yeah. Yeah, his well-tempered. Wow, oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah, it has some emotional quality and depth and strength that I don't want to put Glenn Gould down, but everybody keeps talking about when talking about Bach, talking about Glenn Gould, and for sure that makes sense. And he was a
It's amazing how
master.
much that happens. It's unbelievable
He gets
how
just
much that happens.
yeah, and some other people get left out to really bring something different to the table, and it with me it just touches me more.
Edwin,
Yeah,
Edwin's version.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you hear Glenn's? I don't know if it's the second one, but the last one when he revised the Goldberg or whatever you want to call it, recorded it again. I think still at the same 30th Street Studios. It's like
it's a white cover.
1980 or 81. It might be a white cover.
Yeah, I think so. With him on it.
It's it's pretty different from the late 50s one
Yeah.
of the Goldberg.
Well, I don't know. I think that's the only one I have, the later one
But
from
you're
him.
talking about the Goldberg though,
Yeah,
right? But sorry, were you with Glenn? Were you talking about the well-tempered?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
in a way,
Now, did he?
Bach and in general, he gets
Oh,
so
Bach in general. Okay, so I
like
took it to the
Bach,
Goldberg just because. Yeah,
and everybody talks about him, like there's nobody
yeah,
else who.
yeah, 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 yeah. They still do. Wow. Because I I had such a negative reaction to Glenn's Bach when I was young that I was forced to be quiet about it because everybody would have. I would have been stoned if I had said I didn't
Yeah,
like it. But it was beyond not liking it. I disliked it so much that it forced me to deal with Glenn, and then I got into all the rest of Glenn, which is incredible,
yeah,
which eventually helped me come back. And I mean, the original Goldberg for me is still really tough and maybe unlistenable, but there's so much that's killing. His Schoenberg
hmm
is Schumann. That yeah. Anyway, yeah.
hmm I think he plays the same piano than Bill Evans did on Kind of Blue.
Well, there were maybe three of those pianos. It's hard to say, two or three, or it's hard to
It
know
could
if something
be,
was rented. I've really tried to research this.
but I mean Monk
It may be. It's
and
close
Duke,
enough. I mean, yeah,
it sounds pretty
I know.
similar.
Horace Parlin on Mingus Check out the intro to Self Portrait in Three Colors.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Bill and Arturo for a second, and
Oh,
it's definitely a huge part of that room. And
yeah, of course,
of
yeah.
course, Horace is awesome anyway, but it's just like, what the?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, what do you think about Richter's Bach? Sviatoslav Richter's Bach.
I can't say I know it very well. I think I heard some, yeah, but
Okay. Have you heard Tatiana Nikolaeva?
no.
You might like her. Check her out playing Shostakovich's 24 Preludes and Fugues. They were
Mm-hmm.
written for her, and
Okay, that
she
might
and
be
she has a
my way in because I've heard those pieces, and I have the music here and yeah,
yeah. I
studied a
think
little bit.
Keith recorded them as well.
Yeah,
Mm, yeah.
it didn't touch me until now so much.
Oh,
I can
yeah,
understand that it's amazing pieces of music, but there are other preludes or other pieces,
yeah,
that have touched me more.
yeah. What like Scriabin and
Yeah, yeah, totally. Scriabin. Yeah,
wow,
yeah, totally. How much piano do you play at home?
zero. Can't play piano. I mean, what do they call it? Arranger's piano?
Hmm
I'm I'm the least technically equipped of the arrangers pianists, um, but yeah, I love it. But I don't practice.
Mm. Um, Simon put us together, right? Uh,
Oh,
Yeah, the Simon
Wilson.
Wilson, a great bassist and mutual friend. Um, I think he mentioned when we were playing together that you were about to record a record of your own.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if
Oh,
that.
I was gonna try to do that. Yeah, it kind of fell through business
Oh,
wise, but have
oh
the
shit.
music. Uh, I have the music together. I just have to find another way, maybe, to do it.
Oh shit. Okay. Sorry to hear that because I was going to ask you about. I think you mentioned an interesting personnel that you were thinking about, and I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to ask
yeah.
you about why you put those guys together. Which I don't know. I think maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he
Oh yeah,
told me about you wanted to ask Andrew Cyril, Schofield, Tom Harrell.
yeah, exactly.
That's the guys, right?
Yeah, and Billy Hart.
And Billy Hart. So
Yeah.
two drummers.
Yeah.
Wow. What did you have in mind?
Well, it was going to be the sort of church band for with a pastor. The pastor was going to be Yusef Komanyaka, who's one of my favorite poets, and we were gonna deal with his poems and be the backing band kind of. Tom was
Wow.
gonna play mostly keyboards and piano,
Tom
and
Harrell?
maybe Tom Harrell, yeah, and maybe some trumpet.
Wow.
Who knows? There still may be a way to do it. I don't know. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see.
Wow. I want to hear this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope. It'll work out.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the first time you played with Paul Motion?
The first time, oof, it was probably a Yaka Bro record. I think.
Pearl River?
I'm not sure. I'll have to think about that, but I think it was a Jakob record. Maybe called Pearl River?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Pearl River.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful album.
Oh, yeah.
I
Is
really
that
like that.
Mark Turner on that?
And Chris Cheek.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's that record. Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
It was good, but I think I was a little too comfortable. Again, like that stupid comment I made to Miroslav about what's Roy Haynes doing this summer. I think I made another stupid move with Paul because I'm really into recording and sound, and I'd been listening to Paul my whole life, and I was very comfortable with the engineer because I'd done a lot of record dates with him. And so we finished the record early the second day because everything was going so well, and Paul left early. Um, I think it was like only 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and Paul was gone. And we're listening back, and I thought the bass drum wasn't quite right in the mix, and I thought I knew that it wasn't right.
Yeah.
And so, kind of in a friendly way, arguing with the engineer about it. And he's like, "No, I'm pretty sure, that's how Paul likes it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's not how Paul likes it." We're getting into it, not in a, as bad a way as this sounds
Mm-hmm.
with me telling it. Like it was very friendly, and I have immense respect for this guy, and
Mm.
it was just in a friendly way. And I was in a teasing way. I was like, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to call Paul then." And the guy's like, "Go ahead." So I called Paul, and he's like, "Yes." I could tell he wasn't friendly or in a mood for it. And I don't even fucking know this guy. There's no way I should have been calling him. And I explained the situation, and there's this long silence. And then he says the name of the engineer, and he says, "Knows my bass drum." I was like, "Okay, well, great talking to you, Paul. I'll see you tomorrow," or whatever. Click. And I was like, "Why the fuck did I do that?" Pretty funny, but it was great to go back and tell the engineer exactly what he said, and there was a big laugh.
Yeah. Okay.
But in a weird way, I think Paul liked that whole. He likes that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm. I mean, I love how you guys sound together. I mean, especially, yeah, going back to Balladeering, how you guys play together. I can't really put into words, but also especially on those rubato pieces, kind of, yeah, just moves in a certain way. Dancing comes to mind, in a way. Um,
He's one of those type of drummers that make you feel like you're playing with a great conductor or something.
mm-hmm.
I think a lot of bass players, he brings out such a nice thing from bass players, and I feel like they're responding to a great conductor or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know why. I mean, not only a great conductor, but a conductor you feel an affinity for,
Mm.
or something.
But I mean, listening to you guys, it also feels like not only that he's kind of directing you. It feels like you can direct him too, or you can show ideas that he might react to. It's not just a one-way
Oh
street.
wow! Oh, I should listen to that record again. Oh, wow.
How do you prepare for situations like recording or a tour? Maybe let's take Sko. You've worked with
Oh
Sko for a couple of
yeah.
tours, a couple of bands, and uh, I know. I mean, he sends music in advance, and how do you work on it? How do you prepare?
I think if I have time, it's usually always the same way to kind of multi-track it myself at home,
Mm-hmm.
except for drums. Or maybe with drums a little bit, but I'm such a bad drummer. I'll do whatever little, but I try as much to make it um, sound good with the parts that I won't be playing as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So I remember, Peter Bernstein. He's a pretty funny person. He had sent me some of his own music for a gig, and I had just happened to had got this beautiful old archtop from 1951. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna multi-track it with this amazing guitar, and then play it for Peter. And won't he be surprised that I have such a nice guitar sound too? It's not as good as his, but and then I'll tell him about the guitar. So I did all that, and it was a lot of work. And I forgot that I never told him I got the guitar or that I even played guitar. So when I showed up to the rehearsal, I said, my I really enjoyed working on your music. I love your music, but also my wife really loved listening to it. And I had forgotten that I didn't tell him anything about multi-tracking or playing guitar. And Pete, being the comedy genius that he was, just put it together and said, well, wow, that's great, because imagine what she's going to think when she hears the rest of it. And I was like,
Yeah.
is he dissing my multi-tracking? Like, what the fuck's he talking about? But he was joking about just
Yeah.
listening to the bass.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Now I want to hear some of your Bach stuff and your demos of the.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Schofield. That's like, a gig like that is like, and him sending you the music, that just feels like somebody gave you keys to New York Public Library and said, well, have at it. Let's
Yes.
go for those scores.
Yeah.
It's not like work to try to learn Schofield tune. That's the shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm sure you're well aware. So.
I still keep the first letter he sent me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look at it, and it's just the way he. Yeah, so down to earth. I thought I'd send you
Yeah.
some music that we could try.
Yeah.
Like, oh, of course, yeah. Let's try your songs.
Yeah. Exactly.
And this handwriting, how he writes down stuff, I just love it. It's
Yeah, totally. It's awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Tom Harrell the same way.
Oh
So,
yeah, very different handwriting though.
handwriting and fantastic and
Yeah.
yeah.
Sko
I'm
doesn't
glad
use a ruler though, huh?
Does Tom use a ruler?
I think
guess
so.
it does.
I saw him, write it down on his
Oh
trumpet
yeah,
case
it
with
does
the
look
ruler,
like
like.
yeah. Right. Yeah. But Sco's stuff is easy to read, isn't
It is,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. But even the hard to read charts by people, I prefer to Sibelius charts or
Yeah, me
Finale
too.
charts. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think I know why for me, because it's just a more personal thing. And also
Yeah.
for me, that's maybe weird a little bit, but for me, always feel like if I see a scribbled paper, this always feels to me more inviting to have my own thoughts about it
Yeah,
than
exactly.
perfectly, or most of the times actually worse written down stuff, on the computer, because there's always this situation of somebody telling you, yeah, I didn't know how to put the chord symbol together, or, uh, or the title is this big and it's 2 pages, and on the second page it's just 2 bars, and you have two, stuff like that, and you always think, yeah, couldn't bring my software to putting it on one page, and the titles keep being so big, and the chord symbols are in the, so I
Yeah,
don't care
the
for that
chord symbols
stuff.
are tiny and yeah,
Yeah.
oh, it's horrible.
So
Speaking of chord symbols, how do you, as a pianist, how do you like if a bass player was going to give you charts, do you like the more information the better in a chord symbol, or the less information the better, or like, because I'm tempted to just hand a pianist, if I like the pianist, just hand them like, oh, that's a C chord, that's a B flat chord. I'd love to do that. Not even say dominant, or, especially if we have a chance to play it more than once. I mean, they'll hear what the melody is, and
yeah.
almost like, who am I to say that's a dominant? Like, I don't know. That's a little bit wishful thinking, but it's
Yeah.
something like that, I feel like. Or definitely leave it at dominant and not write in a bunch of.
Just say dominant and no pitch.
Yeah, that's better. That's maybe better. Yeah.
um, I think that's very subjective how everybody approaches it. I sometimes I'm Yeah, because sometimes I might gravitate towards more information, so I can then decide what I'm playing. What I don't like is if I have a piano part with second instrument skill voicings and a chord symbol and no melody.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's what I don't
Wow.
like. Where you like, the melody is not of your business. You handle the
Right.
chords because you're a
Yeah.
pianist. I don't like
Yeah.
that at all. And these are the voices that
Yeah.
I thought might be nice, and they might be usually so limited because that person is not a piano player or something.
Yeah.
Um, So I like to have all the information. I like to have the bass part and the chords, sometimes voicings if it's part of the tune, and the melody, and chord symbols, because it gives me a way of it gives me information about how you think about the chords, or what you think
Yeah.
is the most
Oh,
easy
yeah.
way to
Exactly.
express
Yeah.
them, and that gives me then maybe freedom to, oh, he's thinking about it like this, so I can think about it like this, or that's
Yeah.
a way I've never thought about naming a chord. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then there are people like, I think, Mark Copeland or something. He doesn't write chord changes at all in his music, and the bassists have to figure out what it is then.
Oh, wow. On his
And
written
yeah,
material?
yeah.
Wow.
So it
Damn.
might be written out, and there's no chord changes, so you have to kind of figure it out, which I guess makes it
It's just a
then
melody chart?
no melody and voicings, and
Oh,
chords.
he
So
writes out the voicings?
yeah, so
Yeah.
that might be then uh, that might bring the bassist then to a more personal approach, I guess, to the written material, because you become part of it,
Yeah.
part of
That should
naming
be,
it.
that's a
So
great way to do it, because it's a little bit more like classical.
yeah, and I sometimes
Yeah.
do that too, when I don't want the kind of the chordal approach of somebody uh, because there's certain things that just happen in my mind if I read a C minor 7. There's certain stuff that comes to mind,
Of
obviously.
course.
But if I
I know we
read,
all have that.
yeah, and if I just read a voicing and a melody note, my mind is kind of putting it together.
Yeah,
Um,
I also have stupid, negative, dumb, insecure stuff that'll come to my mind when I see certain chord changes, and imagine me playing them. I'm just like, oh, I know the dumb shit I'm gonna do on these next 3 bars. Like it'll just reinforce certain kind of like negative thinking habits that I'll have that would never happen if I saw a melody. And
yeah.
what video editing software do you use?
Well, the software that I'm recording it with is called Call Recorder, which puts then the videos into the split screen
Oh,
situation,
okay. Yeah.
and then you can extract separate audio tracks, so you can help if somebody's talking too softly or some whatever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I used
Cool.
to, in the first year, I used to edit the videos myself, and that helped me a lot, also with music, because I learned a lot about, what to leave out, and became more deliberate when I talked, and that helped me
Wow.
big time for music, self-editing stuff. And then I started working together with a great friend of mine who's now producing this, and
Oh,
he
nice.
until that point I think he watched all the interviews, and when he told me, I kind of saved that information in my head, and when it came to a point where I was like, okay, this is taking up a lot of time, and I really like this, but also I'm a piano player and I need to play the piano more, and also I have a family and stuff. um, I thought I should maybe work together with somebody who really likes doing this, and
Oh, good.
he's since then, which is I think a year ago now, been producing this series and editing the videos. In
How do you tell him like do whatever you want, but make sure that part about
yeah.
Frosty the Snowman stays in there, or yeah.
Yes, I'll give him notes after the interviews is
Okay.
gone
Yeah.
and is over, uh, and then also he'll run it by me when he's finished. So we
Okay.
might have then discussions about what to take out, or stuff that I'll send him the music that will be in the intro and in the outro,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah.
And it's also nice to see then what he leaves in there, and because it's different, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But we usually don't take a lot of stuff out. It's just to make it more concise or whatever.
Yeah. Because they're
Hell,
usually about an hour and 15, right? Or
yeah,
something.
but man, you're going into the Joy Barron kind of territory right now.
How
I,
long was Joey's? I haven't seen that one yet.
it's 4 hours.
And you edited down to 4 hours?
No, I
You
think
kept
I
it?
think because we talked for 4 hours, and this is why I said you're entering Joy Barron territory right
Yeah.
now, and I edited down to 4 separate parts, and I think that's maybe like 3.5 or 3:40 or something. Yeah,
I can't wait. Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. That was quite a ride with him, as it is with you, man. I'm really enjoying talking to you.
Did you have anything else on the paper? Because you had such good questions,
Um,
and I had terrible distractions, but you had the good questions there.
I really like that. I only have the questions there, or it's not really questions. It's
Well,
it's
yeah,
it's stuff that you know, when I'm preparing for an interview, I have to remind myself that I have been preparing for this interview for a long time already.
yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
whenever I
yeah, yeah,
listen to
yeah.
somebody, I have questions after that.
Sure,
You know,
sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah.
um, so. And what I hate about interviews myself, if I'm interviewed, if somebody's looking at his notes the whole time, especially when somebody's answering their question and the interviewer is
Yeah.
already thinking about the next clever question
Yeah.
that they're,
I'm
you know.
I'm realizing that came out as an awkward Dick Cavett moment. I meant I really like your questions, so I was intrigued. Is what I
Thank you,
meant. Yeah.
thank you. And I like Dick Cavett, so
Oh, you do? Oh,
yeah.
okay. Hmm.
You don't?
I don't know. I constantly go back and forth. Sometimes I denounce him, and then other times, oh, he's not so bad. I don't know.
He had some pretty good guests on his show.
He had good guests, that's for sure. Yeah.
And musical guests as well, you know. And then
Yeah.
when he talks to them, it's funny, you know. I just saw
Yeah.
Duke on his show, which
Yeah.
is very nice. And obviously the
Yeah.
Oscar Peterson thing is a classic.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's not a question. Oh, although actually it is a question because when I was a teenager, maybe I don't know, maybe I was 16 or something. Somebody hipped me to the Wayne Shorter Quartet with Danilo and John Patitucci and Brian Blade, and that was kind of a big moment for me, which led me to check out a lot of Danilo's music.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you know, and you're on a lot of his records, and the first one that I listened to was this one.
Oh, till then, yeah.
Yeah, which was an important album for me. And there are others. And a lot of Danilo's records have you and Adam Cruz and John Patitucci and Brian Blade on it.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
and I was always wondering, because that's two very different sounds with one piano player. And you know, two in a way different approaches, and you're all dancing around him and getting different colors out of him. And I always wondered how it felt for you during that time, because I think you might have played with him before he joined the quartet already, or you knew
Yeah.
him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he joins that quartet and finds those guys that he hooks up with and has a different vibe and feel with them. And I'm not judging in any way. I'm just saying it's different, you know? And it becomes this iconic thing for a lot of people. And then you went
Yeah.
on making records with him where both of these trios are there and on different occasions. And I'm wondering how it felt for you to see another bassist, another drummer playing with the same guy. What does it do to you?
Well, I think I get it because Danilo's really smart. He knows that most of the world isn't really ready for the depth that Adam and I bring to the table, and he needs to have, like some people like John and Brian dumb it down for the masses. So, he's really smart that way. I got to give it up to him. He's really thinking ahead. No, I don't know. I guess I never take time to think about this stuff or even listen to a lot of these records.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still that kid trying to find the record I haven't found yet, or trying to. I don't know what it. I'm such a. I'm not a record fanatic like some of the real record fanatics who know the weight of the vinyl and everything about. Well, this was originally on this label,
Yeah.
but I just always want to find that Edwin Fisher at Abbey Road, 1935. I want to find those records that just. So I have a bad habit of not listening to my peers' albums or my own, and like when I'm around someone like Aaron Parks who just seems to know everybody's album, I'm just like, how did you even hear that? Are those all just come out somewhere? Like, where do they get released? Do you buy all these records? Like, what is even happening?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a little stuck in the record store mentality still, and so I think maybe Tidal is going to change this for me because I finally found a streaming outfit that I can sort of relate to
I'm on
because
there too. Yeah.
it sounds good and they
Hmm.
give credits
Yeah.
and I like the interface and
Yeah.
so between Tidal and YouTube maybe I'm going to catch up
Yeah.
and finally get to hear records I want to hear. Like I want to hear Walter Smith's records. I want to hear um, Sullivan's records, and I don't even know how many he has under his own name. I'm really out of it
Mm.
with the cats. You know,
Yeah.
I know far more about uh, other. Jesus, I know more about Corto's recording history than I know about somebody now. You know,
Yeah.
it's which is crazy. It's out of balance.
Mm. Well, I think that's nice, and I can relate to that. Um, so, but I mean,
And I remember. Oh, I remember. Like one other thing is like Adam and I getting to a rehearsal at like a rehearsal studio and seeing John and Brian. And I remember being struck by myself sometimes like the coffee and the ego thing. I'll let myself do something before I think just to see what the animal wants to do. And the non-logical part of me just not that animals aren't logical. I'm getting in a hole here. Wanted to just run in and take the opportunity to see how they dealt with Danilo's music. I wasn't thinking anything about the record or anything. I was just like, man, I would love to just sit here for the rest of the afternoon and see how they interact with Danilo, how they ask for more input or less input, or
mhm.
yeah, it was like I remember we got there and Danilo was saying something about the 6/8 to Brian about something that he wanted, and Adam and I just looked at each other like, let's get in there.
Uh-huh.
It's so it's more in that spirit. If I'm on records with other rhythm sections, it would
Mm.
be almost like a relief or something. I don't know, some kind of thing like that, like a chance to hear another perspective.
Yeah. How is
Because
Danilo?
it's about the tune, right? Or the like maybe they'll get it right, or maybe they'll help me get it right,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they'll get it worse, so I'll feel like I did do something right, or
Yeah.
whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just sort of like if you really want to make a pizza that you can stand behind, you're gonna learn from everybody, right?
Mm.
You're
Totally.
gonna, and it sort of doesn't matter who got it right, just like as long as yeah, I
How
don't know if
how is
that analogy
Danilo
works.
and as a band leader?
Oh my God, he's crazy. Like that's where the that's where he maybe embraces his crazy. I wouldn't say maybe the most, but he will absolutely take the brakes off the crazy as a band leader and in the studio. And it took me a while to understand that that was intentional. And actually his wife helped me understand that because I would be doing the typical bass player thing or the middle child thing of trying to make sure everybody's okay. And when Danilo would be bursting with ideas and directions and all over the place, and maybe even seemingly contradicting himself sometimes, I I would try to be the maitre d or the you know try to make everything work.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember really going crazy in the studio with stress of trying to keep things focused so that we could finish the record. And there were many people in the control room, and there were a lot of business people in there, and they were all on laptops, and a lot of them weren't even listening to the tracks, and they were all talking to each other or showing each other stuff on the phones or on the laptops.
Oh.
And we're trying to make kind of crucial mic placement decisions and decisions about the tuning of the congos with the bass drums and the toms, and Danilo and I are talking about voicings and arrangement, and it's really thrown together in last minute, and we don't have a lot of time. So I started getting more and more stressed out, and Danilo seemed more and more relaxed. And then more and more people are coming in, and family members and kids. And so finally, I took his wife outside and I said, talk me down. I'm about to ask everybody to leave the control room so that we can finish this record. And she started cracking up. And she said, Ben, Danilo loves this. This is where he functions his best, and he he loves chaos. And I was just struck like by lightning. I was like, yes, of course. That's why didn't I see this?
Mm-hmm.
And went back in and finished the record, and I really like that record. It's
Which
pretty
one is
funny.
this? Panama
What?
500?
Well, no, it's what is the name of this record? Providencia? Is
Oh,
that the name of an album?
this one.
Yes. Is it
Kobila. Kobia? That's my favorite tune.
Kavia is the name? Oh,
No,
that's your
no.
favorite tune.
Yeah.
What about that track Providencia? Did you those voicings are pretty. It might not be that album. Is that?
Um, it's on there, track 5,
It's on there.
but
Oh yeah, check it
somehow,
out.
yeah, I'll go back to it. Yeah. Galactic Panama, I remember.
Yeah.
There's sometimes also titles, they kind of
Yeah,
melt
yeah,
into
yeah,
each
yeah, yeah.
other. Yeah, but then it comes down to personalities and temperament also, and giving into to a different way um, of dealing with things, right?
Well, I think Danilo is so wise and kind of streetwise and heartfelt that I know John and I are really different in so many ways, but I think one thing we share in common is that we have a very warm feeling with Danilo, and we also are watching him like a hawk to be like, no, 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 but you just said C minor. No, 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 no. Like,
Yeah,
no, no, no. The sound check ends at 4. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
we're very much those kind of people,
yeah.
and I think that's good for him in a lot of ways. Not because he can't do it, but because he doesn't have to think about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let Ben think about that. Let John think about that.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
He's aware of being, and then we're aware of, and it goes back and forth, and it's pretty funny. So.
Mm. Is he a guy who gives? Oh yeah, you said it in a little sentence. I think bursting with directions also.
Yeah, yeah, he'll have like you'll be sight reading a song of his, and he'll be saying at the same time he'll be saying 3 other ideas that it could be, and you want to say, man,
Yeah.
can I just try to read this with a good sound or something? Like I'm on
Yeah.
such a low level, like already, like compared to, oh, those are nice variations you're singing to me, but let me just try to read that dotted 16th note correctly for a second.
Mm.
It's it's pretty hilarious. Terry Lynn put it really well recently. We were at a super last minute rehearsal sound check, and he was getting so inspired with some other ideas for Terry and I, and it was that this was a union hall, I think. So the sound check was definitely going to end at the time it was ending, and we were trying to get the kick drum monitor right and everything. It was just super stressful. And Terry just stood up and looked at him and said, "No more ideas." But with a smile, and it was just, and they're like brother and sister anyway.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was just so, uh,
Can we talk about memorizing tunes?
mm.
What's your take on it? I mean, how do you go about it? Uh, let's say maybe back to school or something, where there's long tours. Um, yeah, um, how do you put stuff together in your mind? How do you take it in? Does it happen before the tour, or do you start the tour with paper and then work towards losing the paper, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, start with paper and work towards losing it. Um, But this is a wimpy move. I should try to have it memorized beforehand. But that's one thing Mark said about playing with Bill Evans. Like he said he had the charts on the stand for like, I don't want to misquote him, but I think he said a year and a half, or it was like a really long time.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of gigs
Mm-hmm.
for back then, being a band.
Yeah.
And he said Bill gently told him one night, like, you don't need those chord sheets anymore. I mean, I know I would have done the same thing for sure. But that's different to me than standards somehow. I don't know why. I think I feel a lot more confident with standards because, I mean, these days with YouTube and some other sites, I guess you can kind of do the same. Like before I played with SCO, I definitely tried to find every version of that tune that had ever been recorded. And, what did Mark do? What did Dennis do? So, you can kind of do it, but it's still easier with the standards because you can have 20 versions and then, you're in there somehow.
But how do you put the things together in your mind so they stay there?
So they stay. I finally realized your questions are exposing all my embarrassing. It took me a long time to realize the melody was the key to the whole situation, and that was enough. I mean, I guess I always knew it was the key, but I didn't know it was really enough. And from listening to some Elvin Jones clinics and Philly Joe Jones clinics, and they just kept saying it over and over and over. And I was like, okay, if they're just going to keep saying it, even when that's not exactly what the student asked or audience member asked. And then I started trying it, and sure enough, it was definitely enough. And that's what re-inspired me to work on Bach again, because he said, and his son said, after the top line, you got to go to the bass, and those two will do it. Then you got it. And I didn't believe that either. I thought, oh yeah, fine. If you're a genius, you got it from those two lines. I didn't know that I could too. So that was pretty great.
That helps with a lot of standards, right? I mean, the melody and the bass give you all the information that
you're
you
done.
need.
You're totally done. And then it gives you the confidence to go to the next level and just do lyrics. Don't even try to memorize the melody. Just memorize the lyrics, and then you can change the lyrics too to make them fit your life, but keep the syllables the same.
Whoa, okay.
Switch languages, but just keep the syllables, and you're good. You're not going to play a wrong chord, or I mean, no way. This is and also for a lot of those tunes, what's sacred about C minor to D half diminished to G7 flat 9 back to C minor? God damn it! I mean, that's absurd. That's not. I mean, if I had the time machine, I would love to go to a Bach's concert or CP's concert or Beethoven's concert. I'm sure they had some other notes sometimes that were equally killing. In other words, the scrolls we got from the mountain is not the end of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
What in your mind gives you different choices then to address a chord? Meaning, it's, as you said, it's not just C minor, D half diminished, G7, C minor.
Right. That's just something they had to write down. I'm exaggerating, but let's say that's something they had to write down to get the money, it's published.
Yeah.
This is what it is. It's like the art game. Like somebody asked a great poet after a poetry reading that he read of his own poems. They said, oh, that particular poem, the third one you read, was that a real poem or did you just make that up yourself? And, that became like the joke question that he quoted for the rest of his life. But he himself, this was Robert Creeley, said he knew at the time also that was a very profound question, even though not the way the questioner meant it. It was a complete dumbass question, the way he meant it. But it is a profound, incredible art question.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this stuff, like softly as in a morning sunrise that I was saying the chords. I mean, there's, I just don't believe that has to be the A sections written
Yeah.
in stone for a tune like that, let's say.
Hmm.
I mean, Fall by Wayne Shorter, that's something different,
Yeah,
maybe.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say because I have troubles sometimes if somebody asks me to write out a standard for them. Like I have my own concert series here, and I usually put together new repertoires and new lineups each time. So I'll make out some songs that I want to learn myself and some songs that I have been transcribing over the years. And I usually transcribe originals and learn standards by heart. You know,
Exactly.
transcribe
Yeah.
originals so I can bring them to a session and not expect somebody to know, obscure Andrew Hill songs or whatever. I
Exactly.
I want to have them written down, and standards I have trouble writing them down because I don't want to fix on a chord progression. I don't want to say this is where it's at because I don't think it like that. I think more in functions and in steps, or movement or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And that gives me more options than to play different stuff
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
over it. So you feel the same way.
I think so, if I
Yeah.
understood you correctly. Yeah.
I have sometimes somebody ask me to write down tenderly for me, uh, and I will have problems because I know what happens in my mind if I read chord changes sometimes, or what can happen in the minds of other people playing chord changes, reading chord changes. They might play the same stuff for each chorus if they're
Yeah.
less
I have,
experienced or whatever.
yeah.
And so I'm hesitant to write it down and just say, can you please just learn it and then we'll see what happens and try to.
That's why I think the lyric thing is the greatest, because if you just say, "Oh yeah, I'll write it out for you, definitely," and then you hand them the sheet of lyrics, they're at first going to think you're fucking with them, or you're playing a holier than thou game, and then that can be an opportunity for a discussion, because I really do think that's enough. I'm not trying to be old school or say Jimmy Heath said that, Ben Webster said
Yeah.
that. It's not that. I just think that is the only important thing, because even the melody will have to be bent to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the melody's being bent, good God, on Tenderly, I don't know if I'm going to play the 4 chord after the 1 chord. I might stay on the 1 and let it be a minor,
Yeah.
depending on what the singer or the pianist does. I have no clue. I might have to play a third in the bass. I don't want to, but it might be necessary for
Yeah.
whatever's. You can't write all that down on the paper,
Yeah.
and it's not. Those aren't high level decisions. That's just camping decisions, So for sure.
Mm. Wow.
It's like if you're camping and one of your friends is a judgmental, observant camper, they're like, "Oh, so that's how you build a fire," and you're like, "Yeah, it is today with
Yeah.
this wood in this place."
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the tunes.
Yeah. It makes sense.
No, because if you write out the chords, people are going to judge you, or other pianists are going to be like, "Oh, really? That's what you think are the chords? Oh, okay, all right, okay, no,
Mm.
okay."
You've asked me how I would like people to write down the chords for me, or the what kind of information I would like to have. What would you like to have? I mean, I don't have any lyrics to my songs yet. So if I
Oh, yeah,
if I
that's a
would
good
give
point.
you
No,
if
no,
I
for
would give you my
originals,
song, what would you like to
yeah, yeah.
see?
I was just talking about the standards with
Sure, sure, yeah. I
yeah,
was, yeah.
but I was just talking about the Jewish songs. No, the uh, I want to see everything that the composer feels like writing, because it's interesting. Because, for example, like Tom Harrell's a classic case of writing very, very specific voicings, as specific as he feels he wants to be very clear and helpful. But every time he solos, we're all listening like, what's he thinking about that chord? What does he think about that chord? I'm not like, I'm not sitting there like, oh, now I get a chance to hear Tom Harrell's opinion on A flat minor major over B flat. Like it isn't that at all. It's very much, is he thinking B flat 7? What the fuck is he thinking there? And just every time he solos. And then I walk away from the gig like, yeah, he's thinking B flat 7. Can't wait till tomorrow night when he makes me confused again, depending on what he's going to play.
Yeah.
And that's great for the music, right? If the band is listening to you that closely.
Yeah.
And so in other words, what I'm trying to say is it'll happen by itself. It's like there's these people who are so interesting to listen to. Usually every part of it is interesting. Like if he only wrote bass notes, it would be interesting. If he wrote no information, it'd be interesting. But none of them would be a winning move. It's somehow, if I know I'm definitely not answering the question. I guess it's like we said about Henry Threadgill. I would like each composer to definitely do whatever the fuck they want and not feel pressured to surrender to Sibelius or Finale because,
Yeah.
Because a lot of the charm in playing someone's music is liking to think you understand where they're coming from. And if someone's trying to write as much information as possible, if it's a musician you care about, then that's charming that they're trying to write as much information as possible. If they're not giving you any information, that's also charming. The only thing that isn't charming is someone afraid of the rules. Then it creates a generic fear. And now you're just a generic replacement pianist, replacement bassist, whoever they could get. And the whole thing is some kind of faceless jazz cliche that is over before the concert ever starts. Kind of very depressing. But that's also good because that's in a place like New York where you have a lot of that because you have a lot of everything. It's just one of the challenges to try to work with.
Yeah, I mean that was right when you said this. This was that was what came to mind. You know, a lot of situations I've heard, and I've only visited New York 2 times, but I also see a lot of U.S. musicians coming over here, and sometimes it becomes faceless because you get the feeling that's just one basis that was available for this job.
Oh, for sure. No question. I'm very much a part of that. That's depressing, but it's a reality, and it's a challenge to either find something and learn from, or try not to continue being a part of that situation for everyone's benefit. Whenever that happens, I'll just be amazed and so grateful that anyone is even in the audience. I'm just like, why are you here on a Thursday night in September? That's incredible. That's far more interesting to me than the concert. It was like, how does that happen? That you think something is going to happen and you came out here. That blows my mind. So.
But what happens if you have a specific idea for an ensemble, like the ensemble we talked about before, and something gets in the way? I don't remember what you told me, why it fell through.
Oh, just some business stuff.
Oh, I see. And apparently you didn't do it with somebody else or sometime else because it had to be right for you also, right?
Well, it was a certain recovery that had to happen after to get people like that to get the schedule together for people like that took so much time and work.
I see.
I sort of had to recover both for myself, but also to give them a break. of saying, hey, it's that guy again who said that we were going to record on this date with these people, and you were holding that date. Yeah, but you want to do it again, like the boy who cried wolf or something. You know, so
I
got to
was,
figure that out.
yeah, I see. I was just going to ask how would you feel on the other end of the spectrum when, for some reason, one or two guys from the desired band of yours can't make it? Are you gonna just try it with somebody else, or would you rather say maybe this isn't the right time then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I mean, there's no, what do they call it? B team? There's no B team for a band like that,
Yeah.
but there's definitely other beautiful musicians that I like that could easily do this sound idea I have under the poet, well, for sure, So yeah, call somebody else. It's a short answer. Fuck those guys. I hope they can't make it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes I think getting a call where somebody has to cancel the commitment can also be an opportunity for the music to
Yeah.
be different.
Yeah. Different, something different. Yeah.
What were moments where you were playing in a band that existed for a long time, or I mean, just a band, and people couldn't make it for a night, and somebody else stepped in and made the music so much different, not better or worse, but just a special. It can be a special moment when somebody else steps in, has to look at the music during the sound check, and just makes everybody play differently.
Yeah, we had. There's definitely some really interesting. I mean, that started when I first moved to New York, just with me. Like I had a regular gig every Monday, and the minute any bass, it was. I don't know if there's still some scenes like this, but there used to be a lot of this in New York where somebody would have a regular gig, and if there were friends of friends or whatever, or some famous musicians, it was just a given that sitting in was okay. It was that kind of situation. And I don't know when that stopped happening. Maybe it still happens somewhere. But anyway, I would always have as many bass players because I was new to New York also, come up and play. And oof, so it was me learning a ton, watching them do my regular gig. That was amazing. Um, then after that, there were some weird, odd moments with Kurt Rosenwinkel's regular gig at Smalls, especially when pianists would sit in, because that was before Kurt was playing piano sometimes in the band, and I just never even thought of piano in that music.
Yeah.
And one night Brad sat in, and Kurt turns to him and like respectfully, friendly says, "What would you like to play? You're the one sitting in." And Brad says, "What was that thing in 3/4 and E flat that you played in the first set? I love that."
Yeah.
And Kurt's just like, "What?
Can
What
you
did you
play
just say?"
Chivago?
Yeah. And then we played Zhivago, and Brad
Yeah.
read it. That was wow.
Nice.
That was a crazy moment.
Yep. That is a special song. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't even remember if it's in E flat. God, is it G flat? I don't. Yeah.
I think
Anyway.
it's an E flat or G flat major. But I
Okay.
think E flat. Yeah. No, it's should be E flat.
I haven't looked at it in a long time or heard it.
What were some of the basses that stepped into your gig?
Oh, Scott Colley, Larry Grenadier, Ugana Okegwa, Ben Wolf, Phil Bowler, God, there's so many.
And what was the band
Um,
you were playing with?
oh, it was Raphael de Lugoff, who was a piano player, the son of Art de Lugoff, the Village
Oh,
Gate
yeah, okay.
guy. And it was at the Village Gate.
Wow, okay. That's interesting if somebody else takes over your part in a band and you
Oh
get to
man.
hear it. Yeah. That's another thing. Sorry, I come back to teaching all the time, but it's something that I've tried to do more with my teaching when my students bring their songs that they write. I usually tell them to write it down nicely and then give it to their peers to record it for them. So,
Oh
you
wow.
know, like to other fellow pianists in their class, you know, in their age group or something. Yeah, just
Oh,
give it
that's
to this
cool.
guy and see how he plays your song because they they will know different voicings, they have a different harmonic approach or whatever.
Hmm.
And it'll give you a good idea of how well your song is written down also and what this voicing or this chord symbol might bring to somebody else's mind when they read it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, that's cool. I'm gonna steal that idea. Thank you.
I just thought of it. How was the process with that group with Kurt? I mean, you were playing each Tuesday, you said.
Every Tuesday, and it was great because we rehearsed a lot, which was really fantastic.
Like working on tunes or working on standards or working on
No,
concepts or.
his just working on Kurt's compositions,
Hmm.
and Kurt has this really special vibe when you're rehearsing that you feel like he's trying to figure out how to play it too, which is super inspiring to not feel like everybody's got it all figured out and they're just waiting for you to learn it's like it's really cool. A great energy for a band.
Where do you think it comes from?
I don't know. He's I guess I always thought of it as one of his gifts. I really like his vibe in the studio too, as a producer type.
Hmm.
Like he's got a great energy for. I don't know. Somehow he just makes me feel like we're 10 years old and we're fucking around with dad's 4-track or something. Like
Hmm.
it's just nice. It's there's nothing. There's no funny ambition he has that I don't want to be part of. Like coming from like, oh, we're trying to fuck this up. Oh, we're trying to make this real, da da da. Or
Yeah.
he's very open without making openness a special ethos or a cool thing.
Mm.
It's just simple and open, and let's find some music. It's a great, great attitude. Somehow he makes you feel like playing. That's for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
How was it to record the next step, that album?
I was a little stressed because I loved that band and I loved the gigs at Smalls, and I was stressed that to make sure we could capture that feeling on a record and not have it be changed too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the record? Did you listen to it?
Again, I'm really bad with that. I should. I was thinking about it recently. I should listen to it. I think I was always afraid it would be like not. Um, what happens sometimes with records? It's a little bit like closed in or something.
Hmm.
Like still hi-fi and polished, but not as something changes. But I guess enough time has gone by. I could listen to it. Yeah,
Yep.
check it out. I love the music, so yeah, I should check it.
It was a special record for me. And I still remember when I first heard it, and somehow um, I not musically, but I connect this record with Miles Davis' "Fidi Kilimanjaro" only because um, I was visiting a friend of mine, a guitar player who was studying in Amsterdam, and I was still in school. You know, I wasn't studying back then, so I was still in school, visiting him and trying to go to jam sessions with him and be in record stores all day and then see a concert at night and stuff like that. So I went to a record store and bought this Miles album that I didn't know before. You know, and it's my favorite Miles album to this day. You know, I just kept listening to it, and he was like, "Yeah, but check this out." And you know, he would show me the next step, which was a big record for him at that time. So we would listen back and forth between these two albums for, you know, and then he would go out and study in the conservatory, and I would stay home. I would just listen to that album, to this album, you know, and so this is why
Wow.
I connect those two albums together so deeply.
That's awesome that it could even hold up. Feet of Kilimanjaro is unbelievable.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like a record just visiting this planet. There's no other record like that,
No.
or for any of those guys.
Yeah.
And what the fuck? Have you ever played one of those pianos, that RMI piano?
I
Do you
don't know
like
what
the
this
sound
is.
of that piano?
It's
It's
so
like,
weird. I mean,
it's very strange.
yes.
Horace plays it on a record too,
Oh.
or a couple records, yeah, around that same time.
Oh, I have to check that out. Which record is this?
I don't know if it's The Pursuit of the 27th Man, or I don't remember. I'll find out. But yeah, when I first heard the record, I was like, "Whoa!" They couldn't rent a Wurlitzer or a Roland?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I mean, it's on Frelon Brun and it's on Betty Mabry.
Is it only on those two tracks?
I think so. Let's see.
Okay.
So we have Frelon Brun, we have Petite Machine. Never know how
Little
to.
Stuff.
Yeah. I think Frelon Brun is Little Stuff, huh? Isn't it? Oh no,
Is it?
that's Brown Hornet. It's Frelon Brun. The Little Stuff is Petite Machine. Yeah, and then there's Toot Sweet.
Right.
And then there's Fidi Kilimanjaro, but this is with Herbie on Rhodes, right?
Wow, that's such an unbelievable track.
Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah. And I
think, have you heard?
Yeah.
Have you heard the Herbie demos on Spectrasonics Keyscape?
For the Fender Rhodes?
There's one for Fender Rhodes and there's one for the piano.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know the Fender Rhodes demo where he kind of shows this instrument and talks about it.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I'm just talking about on the Spectrasonics website. There's a bunch of audio demos.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't know about it either. I just went the other day, and everybody else plays a lot of tracks, but Herbie just plays a couple, and he's not holding back. I mean, artistically, he's taken his time. It's like, it's almost that beautiful kind of embarrassment. Like, he just sounds alone, you know, in his room or something. It's fucking incredible.
Can you send this to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
It's unbelievable.
I've learned a lot from these weird little videos where Herbie's checking out a specific keyboard on the internet or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because one of my biggest revelations from that, because there was a time when I would check every day, you know. Of course, I have all his records and all his Sidemen records and books about him and stuff like that. That all, I knew it, but I was checking every day on YouTube if there's a new record or something. Not a new record, but new video. So
right.
I would also find these weird demo videos of him checking out his synthesizer or something. So I'm very interested in when somebody picks up a new instrument, they sometimes play the same stuff. Like, you know, I'm sure you play, it might be the same for you if you are on tour and it's bass du jour.
Yeah.
There's the stuff that you play in the first 30 seconds of discovering a bass might be similar to the next day because you want to see what how the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's familiar to you sounds on a different instrument.
Yeah.
So hearing Herbie play the first couple of chords that he would play, checking out a keyboard, usually mean a lot to me because I have to check out which chord these are, because this is the
Yeah.
stuff that is very familiar to him. So
Yeah.
familiar that he
Yeah.
needs to hear this on different instances and instruments to then figure out how they sound, how they feel.
Yeah. 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 Which is funny because the guys he mentions as harmonic influences are really that way, big time. Like
Claire
Chris
Fisher,
Anderson and Claire Fisher,
Chris Anderson, yeah.
they definitely have their go-to. I don't want to say tricks because it sounds diminutive, but
Yeah.
beautiful tricks. I mean,
Yeah.
but also Chris will surprise you all the time, of course, and Claire
Absolutely.
sometimes also.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I love that aspect of, I love, these voicings, even if it's a major 7 sharp 5 that many other people might use, the way that they love it is like so.
Yeah. They use it in moments where we all wouldn't think of it.
Well, Herbie for sure,
Yeah.
but I mean Claire uses that. um, um, James P. Johnson to Duke. I mean, who's the other guy that Duke likes so much? Always had a cigar.
Fats Waller? No.
No, uh, man, what's his name? But I'll think of it. But he does that dominant chord with the third below the fourth. The
Oh,
fourth is an
right. Yeah,
octave
yeah,
above.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a 5 chord. And
Mm-hmm.
Claire uses it exactly the way Duke uses it, exactly the way this guy
Yeah. Monk
and
also
James
uses it.
P. And Monk
Yeah.
uses it also, yeah.
Yeah.
And they all use it the same way, and it's killing every time.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
also, and then yeah, Herbie and Chris will subvert the stuff
Mm-hmm.
or do a pedal that you think isn't going to work, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think we touched a little bit on that already, but maybe in the last couple of days,
Willie the Lion Smith, sorry.
Willie the Lion. Oh yeah, that's.
Sorry. Yeah. So what were you going to say?
Oh man, that makes me think of this one track of his that I had on repeat for a long time last year. In closing, in the last couple of days, what were the most inspiring things that you've heard?
Yeah, a couple of days. That's a lot. I find these gear demos sometimes on YouTube of a low pass gate or a synthesizer or something, some minutia, and I just can't believe it has 47 views or something. And I save all the ones that touch me and then sometimes put them in VLC player or something, or make a playlist and just put it on. And invariably my wife will be like, what the hell is that? Wow, that's beautiful. What is that? And she'll never believe me that I'm like, oh, it's a gear demo. And so these underground heroes to me on YouTube who maybe weren't even trying to make a great piece of music, but it's just, wow. I've had a bunch of those the last 2 days.
Wow.
And also a couple of soundtrack composers that I never heard of before that kind of.
Like who?
Yeah, those fucking Italians again. It's always them. No, not always, but Carlo Rustichelli. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me neither. It's just like, wow. And have you heard that the Cortot little staged teaching video where he's teaching a student to play the Schumann voice of the poet better? It's clearly staged, but he takes over from the student and starts singing and playing and saying what. That's on YouTube also. I wish I could remember the German. The poet sings, or the poet says. Spricht is the. Yeah.
But it does sound familiar. I think I've seen him teaching. Great. I'll look at it again.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Well,
This was
Ben,
beautiful.
this was quite a trip.
Awesome.
And it's
Thanks for
great.
doing it, Pablo.
Yeah,
Really
man.
cool.
I'm glad you're a part of this now.